or have nothing to do with the new government that is about to be established in Damascus.
President Biden, he also warned that the rebel group HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, as it's called, that the U.S. is watching this group, not just monitoring its words, but their actions. A U.S. official tells CNN significant portions of the group still have direct links to ISIS. What are you watching for to understand better how this rebel group will rule?
I think that's going to depend upon what the neighboring countries do. If the rebel group has no one else to turn to, they will go back to ISIS, using that as a way of rallying the population. That doesn't have to happen. If the United States, together with Jordan and Turkey specifically, reach out to the new government that is about to be established in Damascus and begins to work with that government regardless of their past. Keep in mind it was 2016 that this organization broke with al-Qaeda. So it's been, 8 years since they were part of al-Qaeda, and that was a very troubled time in 2016, and a lot of groups were engaged, called themselves ISIS or al-Qaeda. But right now we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to work with what will be a new government. But if they're isolated, and if they are forced into a corner, they will turn to the Islamic rhetoric of ISIS and al-Qaeda. Doesn't have to happen, but it could.
You know, I thought it was interesting, Congressman, that both President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu today both credited Israel's military actions against Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Iran, for that matter, for paving the way for Bashar al-Assad to fall. How do you see these extraordinary events reshaping, potentially, the balance of power in the Middle East?
You used the correct word, reshaping. And in that reshaping, there are opportunities and there are also extraordinary risks. Clearly, Israel's attacks into Lebanon and also into Syria, taking on Hezbollah, as well as Russia's inability to support the Assad regime because they are totally occupied in Ukraine. Those are factors that have clearly led to the rebel group being able to move quickly and successfully and to establish themselves in Damascus. The question going forward is, how do we now deal with what is going to be a new government in Damascus, in Syria? It's extremely important that we look at this in a very holistic way. There's a lot of history that this group has. It is, as I said a moment ago, some 8 years old. Are they still associated with al-Qaeda? Maybe yes, maybe no, but we will not know if we do not set immediately to establish a working communication with this new regime and to find out what is going to be necessary to create some sort of stability in the area. As I said earlier, you got Turkey to the north, Lebanon to the west, Jordan, and Israel, all of them keenly interested in what this new government will be doing. And Iran would love to have an open door back into the area with the new government. We can't let that happen. And so I would suggest it's time for us to send a very senior diplomat to the new government and to begin a communication process and simultaneously work with the surrounding countries to develop a plan to understand where the new government wants to go, what it needs to get there, and if that path is one that is sensible to the interest of the United States as well as the surrounding countries.
And we heard President Biden say what's important is not so much what these rebel leaders say, but what they do. Actions, he says, speak louder than words. We'll see what happens on that front. Congressman John Garamendi of California, as usual, thank you very much for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Wolf.
And just ahead, is this a new era for the people of Syria? We're going to take a closer look at how the toppling of the Bashar al-Assad regime could fundamentally reshape the region. That's coming up right after a quick break.
New Year's Eve Live with Anderson and Andy. Live coverage starts at 8 on CNN.
Life, diabetes. There's
There is a storm coming, an event like the world has never seen before. The emerging event will have little to do with weather, but more about developing situations that were foreseen many years ago. We have always warned you during severe weather and news events that affected many. Now, Channel 1 Atlanta begins a new series to warn you about what's coming soon and make sure you are prepared. Join us on a new journey, as according to a recent survey, a lot of people believe we are living in the last days. Current news events show us now more than ever. In history, time is setting the stage for the coming storm, a new series, now playing only on Channel 1 Atlanta.
I'm Wade Johnson in New York. We're coming on the air in Syria. Let's listen.
Assad to resign his office.
Good afternoon. I'm Wade Johnson in New York. We're coming on the air at this hour because President Biden is about to speak following the fall of the government of Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Let's listen.
His father before him. Rebel forces have forced Assad to resign his office and flee the country. We're not sure where he is, but there's word that he's in Moscow. At long last, the Assad regime has fallen. This regime brutalized and tortured and killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent Syrians. The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice. It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future for their proud country. It's also a moment of risk and uncertainty. As we all turn to the question of what comes next, the United States will work with our partners and the stakeholders in Syria to help them seize an opportunity to manage the risks. You know, for years, the main backers of Assad have been Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia. But over the last week, their support collapsed, all three of them, because all three of them are far weaker today than they were when I took office. And let's remember why. After Hamas attacked Israel on October the 7th, 2023, when much of the world responded with horror, Iran and its proxies chose to launch a multi-front war against Israel. That was a historic mistake on Iran's part. Today, Iran's main territorial proxy, Hezbollah, is also on its back. Only 12 days ago, I spoke from the Rose Garden about the ceasefire deal in Lebanon, a deal that was only possible because Hezbollah has been badly degraded. Meanwhile, Hamas has been badly degraded as well. Iran's own military capabilities have been weakened. Iran tried 2 times to attack Israel, and the United States and built a coalition of countries to directly defend Israel and help defeat those attacks. All this made possible for Iran and Hezbollah to continue to prop up, impossible, I should say, for them to prop up the Assad regime. Additionally, Russia's support for Assad also failed. And that's because Ukraine, backed by our American allies, has put up a wall of resistance against the invading Russian forces, inflicting massive damage on the Russian forces. And that has left Russia unable to protect its main ally in the Middle East. Excuse my cold. The upshot for all this is, for the first time ever, neither Russia nor Iran nor Hezbollah could defend this abhorrent regime in Syria. And this is a direct result of the blows that Ukraine, Israel, have delivered upon their own self-defense with unflagging support of the United States. You know, over the past 4 years, my administration pursued a clear and principled policy towards Syria. First, we made clear from the start sanctions on Assad would remain in place unless he engaged seriously in a political process to end the civil war, as outlined by the UN Security Council resolution passed in 2015. But Assad refused, so we carried out a comprehensive sanction program against him and all those responsible for atrocities against the Syrian people. Second, we maintained our military presence in Syria, our counter-ISIS, to counter the support of local partners as well on the ground, their partners, never ceding an inch of territory, taking out leaders of ISIS, ensuring that ISIS can never establish a safe haven there again. Third, we've supported Israel's freedom of action against Iranian networks in Syria and against actors aligned with Iran who transported lethal aid to Lebanon. And when necessary, ordered the use of military force against Iranian networks to protect U.S. forces. Our approach has shifted the balance of power in the Middle East. Through this combination of support for our partners, sanctions, diplomacy, and targeted military force when necessary, we now see new opportunities opening up for the people of Syria and for the entire region. Looking ahead, the United States will do the following. First, we'll support Syria's neighbors, including Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, and Israel, should any threat arise from Syria during this period of transition. I will speak with leaders of the region in the coming days. I had long discussions with all of our people earlier this morning. And I'll send senior officials from my administration to the region as well. Second, we will help ensure stability in eastern Syria, protecting any personnel, our personnel, against any threats. And will remain our mission against ISIS will be maintained, including the security of detention facilities where ISIS fighters are being held as prisoners. We're clear-eyed about the fact that ISIS will try to take advantage of any vacuum to reestablish its capabilities and to create a safe haven. We will not let that happen. In fact, just today, U.S. forces conducted dozens of precision strikes, airstrikes, within Syria, targeting ISIS camps and ISIS operatives. Third, we will engage with all Syrian groups, including within the process led by the United Nations, to establish a transition away from the Assad regime toward independent, sovereign, independent, I want to say it again, sovereign Syria, with a new constitution, a new government that serves all Syrians. And this process will be determined by the Syrian people themselves. And the United States will do whatever we can to support them, including through humanitarian relief, to help restore Syria after more than a decade of war and generations of brutality by the Assad family. And finally, we will remain vigilant. Make no mistake, some of the rebel groups that took down Assad have their own grim record of terrorism and human rights abuses. We've taken note of statements by the leaders of these rebel groups in recent days, and they're saying the right things now. But as they take on greater responsibility, we will assess not just their words, but their actions. And we are mindful that there are Americans in Syria, including those who reside there, as well as Austin Tice, who was taken captive more than 12 years ago. We remain committed to returning him to his family. As I've said, this is a moment of considerable risk and uncertainty, but I also believe this is the best opportunity in generations for Syrians to forge their own future, free of opposition. It's also an opportunity through far from certain, for a more secure and prosperous Middle East, where our friends are safe, where enemies are contained. And it would be a waste of this historic opportunity if one tyrant were toppled and only to see a new one rise up in its place. So it's now incumbent upon all the opposition groups to seek a role in governing Syria, to demonstrate their commitment to the rights of all Syrians, the rule of law, and the protection of religious and ethnic minorities. These past few days have been historic. And it's in the days ahead that will determine the future of this country. And we intend to approach them with strength, wisdom, and resolve. So thank you very much. God bless America, and God protect our troops. Thank you.
What should happen to Assad now, Mr. President?
Mr. President, are you concerned about
President Biden there leaving the Roosevelt room after making remarks on Syria, seeming to pause for a moment. Let's see if he answers some of these questions.
He's alive. We think we can get him back, but we have no direct evidence of that yet. And Assad should be held accountable.
Have you directed an operation to go get him, Mr. President?
Is Assad in Moscow?
Get who?
Austin Tice.
We won't want to get him out.
Yes, sir.
We have to identify where he is. Thank you.
President Biden there responding to questions about a journalist who's been captured in Syria for a number of years, but highlighting a few things, projecting a bit of a cautious, optimistic tone in all of this. But he did point out that it would be a waste of an opportunity if one tyrant were toppled, only to see another in its place. He talked about this regime that brutalized, tortured, and killed hundreds of thousands of Syrians. He said the United States will now work with our partners and stakeholders in Syria and around the region. He also touted the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah only because Hezbollah had been weakened in all of this, and talked about how Iran, Russia, and Hezbollah, who were primary backers of Syria, because they had been weakened in recent months, that is what led to all of this and the government of the Assad regime toppling. Let's bring in our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce, who is joining us on the phone right now. And Mary, I think in all of this, it's important to point out that we have still 900 approximately U.S. troops in Syria in the ongoing fight against ISIS. And the president also pointed out that even today, there are airstrikes taking place in that country. Just talk about what this could mean and what the U.S. still has at stake in the country and in the region.
Well, what stands out here most is, I think, the president taking this opportunity to underscore that there is real risk and uncertainty here, but also a moment of real opportunity. Obviously, this is a stunning fall for this dictator who has clung to power for so long. The president noting Assad brutalized, tortured, and killed hundreds of thousands, but that with all of that risk and uncertainty does come a lot of opportunity. And the president, interestingly, also, seemed to take some credit, essentially, for weakening Hezbollah, Russia, and Iran, saying that it basically became impossible for them to continue to prop up Assad and to defend this abhorrent regime. And yes, he did make clear what he's going to do going forward, supporting Syria's neighbors like Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, and Israel. He says he's going to be speaking to the leaders of those countries in the coming days. And yes, that the U.S. is, of course, going to continue to support and maintain, our presence in the region. The president saying he's clear-eyed that ISIS will try to take advantage of any vacuum, and saying point blank that the U.S. is simply not going to let that happen. And yes, he says they're going to engage with Syrian groups to make sure that what happens next is up to the Syrian people. But the president making it very clear his administration is keeping a close eye on this and will be very involved in the coming days and weeks.
All right, Mary Bruce, thank you. Let's bring in ABC News military analyst, retired Marine Colonel Steve Ganyard, also joining us on the phone. Steve, and all of this, I'm reminded of the old adage, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's not necessarily the situation here in Syria, where you have so many different groups, so many different factions involved. And this primary rebel group, HTS, was once affiliated with al-Qaeda. So how does the U.S. approach the situation now and going forward?
Yeah, indeed, Whit. The U.S., for all intents and purposes, has been left out of this in many ways, and I'm not sure that there is much to be gained here. This is really a regional fight, and it turned into a regional fight when two global powers, that is Russia and Iran, were kicked out of Syria. And they were kicked out of Syria because Russia is losing so badly, or has lost so much capability in Ukraine, and they're unable to continue to prop up Assad. And the Iranians have been essentially destroyed. Their proxies of Hezbollah and Hamas have been essentially destroyed or beaten down to the point where they are no longer able to support Assad as well. And so who are these rebels supported by? By Mr. Erdogan in Turkey. So in many ways, the real winner here is Turkey, because they have supported these groups, and the real losers are Russia and Iran. The U.S. and the Europeans are pretty much going to be on the sidelines waiting to see what happens, but there's really no reason, I don't think, to expect that these are Jeffersonians coming in and there'll be anything more than more bloodshed and lots of chaos in what's left of Syria.
And you mentioned neighboring Turkey there. We know so many refugees, millions of refugees fled all over the region, many of them in Turkey right now. Let's bring in ABC News Chief Foreign Correspondent Ian Pannell. And Ian, I was following some of your internal notes that you've been sending from earlier today. I know you've spent many years inside Syria covering the civil war, the brutality. And a two-part question here. How did this government fall so quickly? And what is the mood right now among the people, the contacts you've been speaking with in Syria?
Yeah, Wes, I think this is going to be a bittersweet day for many Syrians. Let's just step back and look at quite what has happened during this period of civil war, which has gone on for over 10 years. We have more than half of the country has been displaced. You have 6.5 million Syrian refugees living mainly in Europe, but also in the United States as well. And you have hundreds of thousands of people who have been killed. There isn't an accurate figure. The last time anyone tried to put a number on it was around 350,000. That was put on by the UN, but that was 3 years ago, and even they admitted that that was probably a conservative estimate. So it's been a catastrophic war for Syrians, and I think many of them will look with some sense of irony on President Biden's remarks. It was certainly reaching towards trying to claim credit for what's taken place in Syria, but I think what most Syrians will remember is the lack of support for their uprising. This did begin as a civilian-led movement for democracy and for dignity above all. It became radicalized throughout the period of the war, and the groups that were directly involved also became more radicalized. I mean, HTS, this coalition of Sunni Islamist rebel groups that has basically taken control together with the Turkish-backed Syrian National Army, prescribed as a terrorist organization. Its leader, Jalani, used to fight with al-Qaeda against the United States in Iraq. He founded the group Jabhat al-Nusra, which was also an al-Qaeda affiliate. And yes, he is the man who's now standing in charge in the country. So I think Steve is absolutely right to be cautious about what this is going to mean. It's not a Jeffersonian moment.
In our place where we're staying for the night, we have seen a couple of patrols. I saw two men armed, and I went up to them and asked them where they were from. They told me they were from Idlib, which is in the northern part of the country. And we saw a man on the street go up and wanted to pose for a photograph of them, which I think sort of speaks to the moment. There is obviously jubilation, elation, but also this sense of you can't compute. It was so fast, so breathtaking. It's astonishing. And I think people are taking some time to try to process the magnitude. Keep in mind, Wolf, we're talking about 53 years of Assad rule, 53 years of a brutal police state. And I can't tell you how many Syrians have said to me, Wolf, that, you know, we understand that there are concerns about the rebels and the makeup of the rebels and the fact that some of them are Islamists and some of them are even jihadists or have been affiliated with Al-Qaeda or prescribed organizations. But let us have this moment. Let us celebrate the fact that this brutal dictator who has ruthlessly killed hundreds of thousands of people, who has gassed children with lethal nerve agents, who has locked people in prisons and tortured and beaten them to death, that he is finally gone. And that whatever may come and whatever the anxiety, this is a new chapter for Syria, Wolf.
Clarissa Ward now reporting from Damascus. Thank you very, very much. I want to bring in our international diplomatic editor, Nick Robertson, right now. Nick, what do we know about a transition of power in Syria?
Yeah, clearly there's a massive amount of work for the rebels to do. I mean, we saw Clarissa there coming through the border checkpoint. You'd normally expect there to be border officials, customs, all that sort of thing, passport control. None of that. They have to fill those positions. And this is, I think, what we're beginning to see emerging, the picture that emerges, both from the rebels saying that they'll put in place this curfew until they sort of get more physical control of the security situation, but also keeping on the Prime Minister in an interim capacity and the former Prime Minister himself saying that he's going to work with the rebels in this sort of transitional capacity to try to make sure that governance in the country on a day-to-day basis. Again, thinking about those pictures we saw earlier in the day at the airport in Damascus, where people arrived at the airport. There were no customs officials there. There was nobody running the place. All of these institutions that keep the country going, the rebels now have to fill them. And part of the way they appear to intend to do that is by encouraging those who worked in those sorts of positions, more lower positions, if you will, in the previous government, to come back and get back to work. So there's that part. There's the day-to-day part. Then there's the security. I think we're going to see the rebels increasingly fan out and try to clear pockets of where that they have yet to clear to make sure there's no sort of Assad or other resistance there. But the plan, as I understand, both the way that the rebels have articulated and other political leaders in Syria, opposition political leaders have articulated it to me, is that once the main cities are secure, the rebels pull out of the cities and allow a group of sort of power-sharing group of the different sectarian, if you will, ethnic, religious interests to run the country, use civilian police in the capital for a limited period, 6 to 9 months is what they're saying. And then at the end of that, the aspiration would be to hold elections. And to some degree, the draft work for all of that has been put in place previously. Peace negotiations a decade or so ago talked about new constitutions, new governments, a lot of that governance, a lot of that's been drafted up. And that was actually something that President Biden spoke about for Syria's future.
Indeed he did. Nick Robertson, thank you very much. And as you correctly point out, the images of those Syrian people tearing down the statues of Bashar al-Assad, his father, the former leader, the late leader, as well as his son, so powerful, so dramatic indeed. Something none of us, I assume, just a few weeks ago expected to see, but we're seeing it right now. Nick, thank you very, very much. We're also learning right now some new details on where Bashar al-Assad has fled. An official source in Russia telling CNN that Assad and his family have actually arrived in Moscow and have been granted asylum in Russia. CNN's Fred Pleitgen is joining us from Moscow right now. Fred, what more are you learning about Bashar al-Assad's arrival in Russia?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Wolf. Syrian source, or I should say, a Russian source, official Russian source, telling CNN that Bashar al-Assad and members of his family have landed here, touched down here in Moscow, and are being granted asylum, they say, on humanitarian grounds. So the Russians obviously taking in Bashar al-Assad, taking in members of his family. And this really came after a day where the whereabouts of the former Syrian leader were very much unknown and very much in doubt. It was actually the Russians themselves, Wolf, who first confirmed that Bashar al-Assad had left Syria. They said that Bashar al-Assad had decided to tell his deputies, to tell the members of his government to put in place a transition of power in Syria, and that he then left the country. And it was unclear where exactly he had gone. Now it's clear that he is here in Moscow, in Russia. Of course, this is also a big blow to the Russians as well. They have for a long time been the biggest backers, or one of the biggest backers of the Assad regime, especially as far as military is concerned. But I'm actually in a pretty interesting place here as well, Wolf. This is, by all intents and purposes, the former embassy of the former Syrian Arab Republic. As you can see, this is the building here. If we pan up, you can see there is that flagpole where until this morning, apparently the flag of the Syrian Arab Republic had hung. Now that flag has already been taken down. If we pan here to the entrance, you can see that at the door there is no longer a plaque of the Syrian Arab Republic. One thing that we are seeing, though, if we look over there, we pan over there, we can see there is still the bust of Hafez al-Assad, of course, the father of Bashar al-Assad, again, the Assad dynasty, the Assad family ruling Syria, as Clarissa was saying before, for 53 years. Not a single light on in here. It's unclear whether or not any of the staff are actually still working or intend to come back. But as you can see, that transition that is going on inside Syria is definitely something that the Russians have also recognized, being the biggest backers of Bashar al-Assad and his government for such a very long period of time. The Russians are now saying that they are talking to all of the armed groups on the ground as well, because of course the Russians very concerned about their military assets that they have inside Syria. Those of course are substantial. Russia's only Mediterranean port is in the port town of Tartus. Just last week there was a big naval exercise that the Russians conducted, also firing nuclear-capable missiles in that exercise as well. And then, of course, there is the air base at Khmeimim, which is near Latakia, when the Russians have already said that for now, the safety of their military assets have been guaranteed by the armed groups, but they are also saying that their forces on the ground in Syria are also on high alert. And of course, one of the things right now is that the status of those bases, the future of those, very much in doubt, Wolf.
Yeah, clearly, Russia's been preoccupied with its war against Ukraine, and that's why its military capabilities in the Middle East, especially in Syria, have been reduced. One of the reasons why this rebel group was able to succeed until recently, the Russian government was very much aligned with the Bashar al-Assad regime. Fred Pleitgen in Moscow for us. Thank you very, very much. At the same time, the U.S. is conducting strikes on ISIS targets in parts of Syria after rebels took control of the country. We have details on those operations and what this power shift in Syria means for the United States. A lot more coming up after this quick break.
CNN Heroes on All-Star Tribute, tonight at 8 on CNN.
So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking about our honeymoon. What about Africa? Safari. Hot air balloon ride. Swim with elephants.
Wait, can we afford a safari? Great question. Like everything, takes a little planning. Or
put the money towards a down payment.
On a ranch?
In Montana.
With horses.
Let's take a look at those scenarios.
JP Morgan Wealth Management has advisors in Chase branches and tools like Wealth Plan to help keep you on track. When you're planning for it all, the answer is JP Morgan Wealth Management.
This is what my house looks like. And I haven't cleaned in 3 months. That's because I have someone come and do it for me twice a month through HomeAglow. Let's talk about how much that actually cost me. Using HomeAglow, the first cost was $39. The cleaner I chose, Jonathan, did an amazing job, so I stuck with it. Now I pay $49 a month for unlimited cleaning starting at $18 an hour. That's a $30 an hour discount, which means my membership cost pays for itself in under 2 hours of cleaning. Are you still with me? If this is the sort of service you can use, those promos are still available.
Hi, Grandma. I played baseball today.
Oh, that's great.
What position did you play?
First base.
That's what Grandpa used to play.
When our hearing wouldn't allow us to use a regular phone, it made us feel isolated.
It became difficult to communicate with our friends and family.
Clear Captions was an easy solution for us.
Clear Captions provides captions on a phone like captioning on your TV, so you can see what the caller is saying live as they say it.
Making it easy to understand and respond immediately.
There is no insurance or Medicare required. Clear Captions service is provided at no cost to you through a federally funded program. We deliver, install, and train you on how to use your phone, all at no cost to you.
Give your loved ones the independence and connection they deserve.
Call now to see if you qualify to get a Clear Captions phone at no cost to you.
Call 1-800-592-1334. That's 1-800-592-1334.
For over 25 years, Lovesac has been rewriting the rules of comfort. It's okay to change your style. Get messy. Get immersed. With Lovesac, you make the rules.
Precise designs. Subtle.
There is a storm coming, an event like the world has never seen before. The emerging event will have little to do with weather, but more about developing situations that were foreseen many years ago. We have always warned you during severe weather and news events that affected many. Now, Channel 1 Atlanta begins a new series to warn you about what's coming soon and make sure you are prepared. Join us on a new journey, as according to a recent survey, a lot of people believe we are living in the last days. Current news events show us now more than ever. In history, time is setting the stage for the coming storm. A new series, now playing only on Channel 1 Atlanta.
White House. CNN's Kayla Tausche is over at the White House. She's got the latest developments, and our national security correspondent, Natasha Bertrand, is joining us from the Pentagon right now. Kayla, let me start with you. What else did the president have to say?
Well, Wolf, the president acknowledged the historic nature of this coup and suggested that after 14 years of civil war, that it was the conditions brought about by U.S. policy that worked to weaken those in the region, those countries that had previously been enabling the Assad regime. He also talked about the need to protect the American military troops that are stationed there, as well as American citizens who live in Syria. And then he mentioned Austin Tice, the journalist who has been held captive in Syria for 12 years and whose family just met with President Biden last week. A frustrating meeting for that family, but Biden says they remain committed to bringing Tice home, but they still need to figure out where he is. As for the future of the country of Syria, the U.S. is making no assumptions about who exactly is in power right now. The U.S. has designated HTS a terrorist organization alongside the United Nations since 2018, which complicates its ability to reach out to the group and to potentially endorse its rule there, especially because the U.S. has real concerns about whether a leadership vacuum would create conditions for ISIS, Al-Qaeda, or some of those other ideologies to resurge there. Biden endorsed a UN-led transition process, and a senior administration official says that the U.S. has been in touch with many opposition groups across Syria in various regions, as they have been for the last decade, to understand exactly where they are and what they are thinking right now. And the president, in no uncertain terms, encouraging some of those opposition groups to speak out. Certainly, it is a situation that is evolving quickly. The senior administration official says that there are also priorities to make sure that those chemical and biological weapons that are inside Syria never get used, and that there are various structures in place to try to shore up relationships with partners in the region. Wolf.
Let me get Natasha's thoughts as well. Natasha, as you know, the president outlined some of the U.S.'s key priorities right now in Syria, including protecting U.S. military personnel. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are currently about 900 American troops based in Syria.
There are, Wolf. There are about 900 troops that are currently in Syria, and according to officials that we've spoken to, as well as comments made by President Biden earlier today, there does not appear to be any plan at this moment to pull them out. The U.S. believes that this core anti-ISIS mission that they have been fulfilling over the last several years in coordination with the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces is really, really important, especially now because this power vacuum inside Syria could create that kind of vacuum that ISIS then seeks to exploit. And interestingly, one senior official did tell my colleague Jim Sciutto that the U.S. is concerned that a number of HTS affiliates have still deep ties to ISIS. And so, according to another senior administration official who spoke to reporters a short time ago, ISIS is really trying to resurge here. They want to reconstitute, and the U.S. is really intent on not allowing that to happen. To that end, the U.S. actually carried out dozens of airstrikes just today on central Syria against more than 75 targets, including ISIS personnel, ISIS camps. That was a direct message, according to officials, to ISIS leadership, to ISIS members there, that the U.S. is not going to allow them to reconstitute. That despite the events over the last 10 days that we have seen inside Syria, the U.S. intends to stay there. The question, of course, though, what kind of protection, if any, can those rebel groups afford to the U.S.? Is the U.S. confident that they can maintain force protection there? That is a big question at this point, Wolf.
All right, Natasha Bertrand of the Pentagon, Kayla Tausche over at the White House. To both of you, thank you very, very much. Just ahead, incredible images from the ground in Damascus as the Bashar al-Assad regime falls to rebel forces after more than 50 years in power. What this change means for the millions of people in Syria, we'll have details. That's next.
Welcome to Times Square.
That's not in my life!
So embarrassing. New Year's Eve Live with Anderson and Andy. Live coverage starts at 8 on CNN. Streaming live on Max.
Reverse the signs of aging with Cerevital Advanced. Cerevital Advanced reduces wrinkles and promotes weight loss in weeks. With Cerevital Advanced, you can also boost your body's own youth hormone, which declines as you age. Learn more at trycerevital.com.
Yikes. Leaky refrigerator coil card.
Oh no.
But your future is bright with an American Home Shield warranty to protect your covered home system. Don't worry, be warranty.
Ooh, stuffed up again?
So congested.
You need Sinex Saline from Vicks.
Just Sinex? Breathe. What is... Wow. Sinex? Breathe. Ah.
Look out, 'cause here I come.
Have you always had trouble with your weight? Same.
Discover the power of Wegovy.
With Wegovy, I lost 35 pounds. And some lost over 46 pounds.
And I'm keeping the weight off.
I'm reducing my risk. Wegovy is the only weight management medicine proven to reduce risk of major cardiovascular events such as death, heart attack, or stroke in adults with known heart disease and obesity.
Don't use Wegovy with semaglutide or GLP-1 medicines or in children under 12. Don't take if you or your family had MTC, MEN2, or if allergic to it. Tell your prescriber if you are breastfeeding, pregnant, or plan to be. Stop taking and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or any of these allergic reactions. Serious side effects may include pancreas inflammation and gallbladder problems. Call your prescriber if you have any of these symptoms. Wegovy may cause low blood sugar in people with diabetes, especially if you take medicines to treat diabetes. Call your prescriber about vision changes, if you feel your heart racing while at rest, or if you have mental changes. Depression or thoughts of suicide may occur. Common side effects include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, stomach pain, flu or upset, headache, feeling tired, dizzy or bloated, gas, and heartburn. Some side effects lead to dehydration, which may cause kidney problems.
With Wegovy,
I'm losing weight.
I'm keeping it off.
And I'm lowering my CV risk.
Check your coverage before talking to your prescriber about Wegovy.
Uncommon Goods takes your thoughtful thoughts and turns them into brilliant gift ideas. A magic light, an entire light show, a fireside chat, a special snowflake. Anyway, you get the idea. The brilliant one. Shop brilliantly at uncommongoods.com.
And here we go. Consumer Cellular uses the same towers as Big Wireless, but then passes the savings on to you.
So I get the same fast nationwide coverage if I switch?
Yep. For unlimited talk and text with reliable coverage and your second month free, call Consumer Cellular.
Hi, I'm Laura Geller, here to help you with your beauty gifting this season. You've reached Laura's Holiday Hotline.
My mom wants to revamp her makeup, but she feels self-conscious about her mature skin.
My baked makeup is perfect for women 40 and older. Get her the Tuscan Dreams palette. It has eyeshadows, blush, bronzer, and highlighter, all created to never crease or cake into fine lines and wrinkles.
I'm sold. Where can I get it?
Shop my entire holiday collection at laurageller.com.
Do you have a box of videotapes, film reels, or photos that are degrading? Legacy Box professionally converts them to DVDs, thumb drive, or the cloud. Legacy Box is simple and safe, with over 1 million satisfied customers. Visit legacybox.com today and get 60% off.
I was paying for my ex's wine club membership for months before I finally caught it. After we broke up, I forgot all about it, but my credit card did not. That's why I downloaded Rocket Money, an app that shows you all your subscriptions in one place. Any that you don't want, cancel right in the app. Raise a glass to smarter spending and download Rocket Money today.
Luther Never Too Much, New Year's Day at 8 on CNN.
Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
If you or a loved one have mesothelioma, we'll send you a free book to answer questions you may have. Call now and we'll come to you.
800-821-4000.
It's been a breathtaking 24 hours in Syria. For the millions who had lived under the brutal Assad regime, a wave of elation and relief erupted when the news broke of him being ousted. Here's what it looked like and sounded like when the rebels rolled into key cities, including the capital, Damascus. I'm joined now by Danny Mackey. He's a Syrian journalist and analyst who's covered the conflict for the Middle East Institute. Danny, thanks so much for joining us. You're in Damascus right now. What have these past 24 hours been like?
Well, they've been historic for the perspective of anyone who has...
Danny, I think you're free.
And has actually viewed what's happened over the previous period. And from my perspective, being in Syria and actually watching what's happening is super, it's historic, because what we've seen for a country that's been through so much war and pain, to actually come together and remove this regime, which has been here for over 60 years, it's something quite significant and against all odds, because the whole world has kind of come together just to destroy the hopes and dreams of the Syrian people. And now what we're seeing is a country reunited again in a different mode now, where everyone is coming together. There are so many different challenges which the Syrian people together can face, and Assad is out of the picture. He's no longer in the country.
And before we talk about that different mode and what's ahead for Syria, did anyone in Syria have any sense that the Assad regime would crumble this quickly?
No one envisaged this. This was something completely unique. It was something that not one analyst or pundit would have even thought that was possible of happening, because Assad was really in a lead position. He was in Idlib. He was literally closing in on Idlib. You know, he was going to finish the military side of the conflict. But, you know, wars are just not about winning battles, and you have to win the peace. You have to win hearts and minds. And in a country where you haven't found a solution to a root cause problem, you really need to make sure that you're not complacent. And Assad got complacent. You know, he put too much faith in his allies, in the Iranians, in the Russians, in Hezbollah. Hezbollah was absolutely damaged by the Israelis. The Iranians have just constantly been keeping just losses in the region in every single way. The Russians have their own quagmire in Ukraine. So all of Assad's allies are facing huge, you know, major problems to their own security. So none of them were able to actually step in and help him. So what that did was put extra pressure on the Syrian army, an army which is based on conscription. And Assad, in the last 2 years, issued a number of different rules which actually made sure that many of the conscripts were new. So Assad was sending new fighters to the front lines against groups such as HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which were seasoned, experienced fighters, and they were just getting smashed in Aleppo. And that's what triggered this collapse.
That's really interesting insight. So, as you know, Assad was ousted by this coalition of rebel groups, some of them linked historically to al-Qaeda. And the rebel leader at the moment appears to be Abu Muhammad al-Julani. He talked exclusively to CNN's Jumana Karache about his goal now for Syria. So listen to this.
Once an al-Qaeda leader, your group has had affiliations with al-Qaeda, with ISIS, and now you are projecting this image of a moderate leader and a moderate group. What is HTS right now?
Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is one of the factions in the region, just like all the others. Now we're talking about a larger project. We're talking about building Syria. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is merely one detail of this dialogue, and it may dissolve at any time. It's not an end in itself, but a means to perform a task confronting this regime.
So, Danny, when you hear that, do you have confidence that this group won't just usher in a new era of violence or some different type of authoritarian rule?
Well, typically you'd say that going to change at the end of the day. But what we've seen, especially in locations such as Aleppo, is the decline of these radical sentiments where, you know, you have a lot of minorities in Aleppo. It's an area which has a lot of, it's far more diverse than other places in Syria. And Hayat Tahrir al-Sham have in Aleppo been very positive with the minorities, and they have massacres or, you know, taking out minorities. So what we could definitely say is that there is a behavioral change, even if it might be minimal. But in Damascus, Hama, Homs, we haven't seen this from other minorities. The city of Salamiyya is an Ismaili city. It's in the eastern side of Hama, and it's an area which fought ISIS and Jabhat al-Nusra for a number of years. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham didn't even go near Salamiyya. They reached some sort of agreement with the notables of the area. These sentiments are what have actually led Hayat Tahrir al-Sham.
Danny, we're having obviously some technical issues because you're in Damascus, but thank you for the insight. That has been so interesting to get your perspective on the ground there, and we'll talk again. Thank you so much. We have much more ahead on the breaking news out of Syria, what this means for Syria's neighbors and the entire region. Next.
CNN Heroes on All-Star Tribute, tonight at 8 on CNN.
When you live with diabetes, progress is having your coffee like you like it, without an audience. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor tracks your glucose in real time, so everyone else doesn't have to. And over time, it can help lower your A1C. Confident choices for more control of your life. This is progress. Learn more and try for free at freestylelibre.us.
Give the Omaha Steaks favorite gift package that includes bacon-wrapped filet mignon, chicken, burgers, franks, sides, and desserts for just $89.99. You'll save 64%. Order now to get 4 free burgers. Visit omahasteaks.com/TV.
What's up? You seem kind of sluggish today.
Things aren't really moving.
You could use some Metamucil.
Metamucil psyllium fiber helps keep your digestive system moving so you can feel lighter and more energetic. Metamucil keeps you moving. And try Fizzing Fiber Plus vitamins.
I knew it. I thought something is different about my man.
It's Blue Chew.
Blue Chew.
Blue Chew?
Blue Chew. Blue Chew. Blue Chew. Blue Chew. Blue Chew. You've done it again.
This is the Carry-On Closet, the suitcase with the one-of-a-kind closet system that keeps you organized anywhere. Pack all you need for up to 10 days and travel without ever unpacking.
Hi, Grandma. I played baseball today.
Oh, that's great.
What position did you play?
First base.
That's what Grandpa used to play.
When our hearing wouldn't allow us to use a regular phone, it made us feel isolated.
It became difficult to communicate with our friends and family.
Clear Captions was an easy solution for us.
Clear Captions provides captions on a phone like captioning on your TV, so you can see what the caller is saying live as they say it.
Making it easy to understand and respond immediately.
There is no insurance or Medicare required. Clear Captions service is provided at no cost to you through a federally funded program. We deliver, install, and train you on how to use your phone, all at no cost to you.
Give your loved ones the independence and connection they deserve.
Call now to see if you qualify to get a Clear Captions phone at no cost to you.
Call 1-800-592-1334. That's 1-800-592-1334.
It's time to feed the dogs real food in the right amount. A healthy weight can help dogs live a longer, happier life. The Farmer's Dog makes weight management easy with fresh food pre-portioned for your dog's needs. It's an idea whose time has come.
Vicks VapoStick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors. Easy to apply for the whole family. Vicks VapoStick. And try new Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors.
As a cardiologist, when I put my patients on a statin to reduce cholesterol, I also tell them it can deplete their CoQ10 levels. I recommend taking Cunol CoQ10. Cunol has 3 times better absorption than regular CoQ10. Cunol, the brand I trust.
My hair was thinning all around my hairline.
My dermatologist recommended Nutrafol. It's 100% drug-free and clinically tested.
My hair is longer, thicker.
Nutrafol is life-changing for me.
Get growing at Nutrafol.com.
I find it challenging to come up with a gift that's really impactful, something that really makes a difference. Jolie has been a tremendous gift. It's something that is not only looks beautiful, but makes us feel amazing, and is something that we get to use every day.
When my mom needed adult diapers, I didn't know where to start. Then I found Carewell. I called their 24/7 customer care team and got advice on which products were right for her. They helped me find the right fit and absorbency for her needs. I was able to get exactly what mom needed at a great price. Plus, it shipped free right to my door. As a new caregiver, I have a lot of questions. I'm so glad Carewell is there to help. Save 30% on your first order and get 24/7 customer care at carewell.com.
I can't move again.
You've gotten used to chaos. We can get rid of that.
Don't sell.
Oh my gosh, is this our house?
When leaving just isn't an option, the brothers are here to help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Don't hate your house. All new Wednesday at 9 on HGTV.
We'll get back to the breaking news out of Syria in a moment, but first, an update on the manhunt in the U.S. The suspect, the getaway bike, and the weapon. Those are still the key missing pieces of evidence that police are looking for in the fatal shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Authorities believe the suspect left New York City right after Wednesday's shooting, but he left behind a backpack they think he may have worn during the crime. Officials say it contained a jacket and Monopoly money, but no weapon. I want to bring in now former senior FBI profiler and special agent Mary Ellen O'Toole for her insights. Mary Ellen, what do you see in this case? Monopoly money? What's this all about?
Yes, that's certainly very bizarre. And if in fact that's true, what I would say is there's a good likelihood that this is what we would refer to as game playing. So that means that this shooter actually would have wanted that backpack ultimately found, and in it the Monopoly money. There's no reason for him to have walked around New York with Monopoly money. It had no use, and the assumption is that he came there only to New York only with the things that he needed. But there is an element of game playing with this. There's an element of playing cat and mouse with the police department, and we saw it with the casings that had words written on them, casings and bullets that he really wanted the police to find, to imply that there was a specific motive to the case. So this could be kind of the same thing, implying that there's money, that this is money, and that he's either trumped the police or he's taunting the police, but it could be an extension of this game playing.
That's really interesting to hear. And the words that you're talking about were something like delay, deny, depose, referring, it seems, to, I mean, we're making assumptions, how he was treated, how a family member was treated, how he thinks the health insurance industry treats Americans. I mean, that's all speculation, but that's some of what authorities have tried to piece together. And so do you think that this is, I mean, I've heard lots of different speculation. Is this an amateur or a professional person?
Well, I break it down to, is this somebody that's practiced or experienced? And experience means you've committed another crime like this in the past, so you know what you're doing and you know what to expect. If you've practiced the crime, but you've never committed an assassination before, you're going to make mistakes because you're practicing as a result of video games or books or movies. So that experience versus practice makes a big difference. There are a number of mistakes that this shooter made, to include leaving forensic evidence behind. The DNA, all the videos, taking off his mask, and that's not something a professional assassin would do. So that to me suggests this is someone who's practiced it before, but he's never had the experience of carrying out an assassination. And that's why we see the mistakes. And one of the big things that somebody in his situation will encounter is, if you've only practiced it, you had no idea what the response of the NYPD would be. None. And so to manage that is not going, it's not going to be very good. He's going to start to become paranoid. He's going to lose his ability to think critically, thinking that everybody's coming after him. And that's when he starts to deteriorate in his behavior. And that is a time when he's likely to be apprehended. And it's also a time, if he feels trapped, that suicide could be an option.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously the days ahead will be critical here. Mary Ellen O'Toole, thanks for your expertise. Great to talk to you.
You're welcome.
We have much more ahead on the breaking news out of Syria right after this quick break.
Here's something you don't see very often. Elves not working, and why not? I gave them the day off, thanks to WeatherTech. With so many gifts for everyone, they don't have to work as hard. There's laser-measured floor liners and
There is a storm coming, an event like the world has never seen before. The emerging event will have little to do with weather, but more about developing situations that were foreseen many years ago. We have always warned you during severe weather and news events that affected many. Now, Channel 1 Atlanta begins a new series to warn you about what's coming soon and make sure you are prepared. Join us on a new journey, as according to a recent survey, a lot of people believe we are living in the last days. Current news events show us now more than ever, and history, time is setting the stage for the coming storm, a new series, now playing only on Channel 1, Atlanta.
Breaking news out of Syria, rebel fighters liberating the capital of Damascus and abruptly ending the long and brutal rule of President Bashar al-Assad. I'm joined now by Firas Maqsad, Senior Fellow and Director of Strategic Outreach for the Middle East Institute here in Washington. You've closely followed this 13-year-old conflict over the years where Assad chemically gassed his own people, imprisoned and tortured those who opposed him, and bombed women and children. The war also spurred a refugee crisis where thousands of Syrians died trying to simply cross the Mediterranean Sea and to safety. It took an enormous toll on Syria's children. And like all of us, you'll remember this moment of that shell-shocked little boy in Aleppo that became a symbol of the war. Watch this. Firas, talk to us a little bit about the enormity of this current moment for the Syrian people.
Yes, Wolf, thank you for having me on your show. This is a moment for the Middle East and for many Arabs that is akin to the collapse of the Berlin Wall in Europe, in that it ushers in a whole new era, not only for Syrians, but for people across the region, because Syria sits right there in the middle of the Middle East. And because Syria, for so long, projected power and influence and had impact on nearby countries like Lebanon, for example, or even Iraq. And so this is a new world, a new moment for Syria and the people around it. A promising moment, but also potentially a perilous moment for what might still unfold in Syria in terms of the instability that one might expect.
Well, I'm anxious to get your thoughts. What do you expect for us will happen next inside Syria as its people begin the project of a new post-Assad government?
Well, this is largely a joyous moment for many in Syria and across the Middle East. We're witnessing the Iran-sponsored access from Iraq to Syria and then Lebanon and Hezbollah on the Mediterranean. We're witnessing that access crumble. But there is a fear that what comes next in Syria might be closer to what happened in Libya than anything else, where state collapse follows and militia warfare carries the day. Syria is a multi-communal country. It's a multi-religious country. But then there are also Arabs and Kurds. And it's a country where all the other regional players are involved in its business. So this could very quickly devolve into the war of others on Syrian land and also a devastating civil war. Syrians are hoping to avert that, and the rebels are making all the right noises about wanting to invest in state institution and have a more inclusive governance in the future. But words is one thing, action is a whole different story.
For us, I know you're now in Doha, Qatar, where key regional players have been discussing the issues in Syria right now. What's your sense of how neighboring countries in the region like Turkey, Jordan, Egypt, the UAE, Saudi Arabia are preparing for Syria's future?
Yeah, all very key, Wolf. And in fact, part of the reason why I am here is because the foreign ministers of most of these countries that you just named were meeting in Doha. A good chunk of their discussion, as you could imagine, is what to do about the future of Syria and how to manage that transition. The challenge is that, first, these countries have competing interests. And very clearly, Turkey here, that is the main sponsor of these Islamist rebel forces, is going to emerge the big winner. Iran and Russia, the big losers. But then there's also the question of what happens when potentially the United States withdraws from Syria. We have some 900 troops on the ground there, mostly to combat ISIS. And President Trump in his previous presidency had said that he wanted to withdraw. His impulse is to leave Syria. He said there's nothing there but death and sand. And if the U.S. is in fact to withdraw, we have to worry about the resurgence of ISIS, and we have to worry about competition between Turkey, the Kurds, and many of the other regional powers on Syrian land.
You make very strong points for us, Maksad. Thank you so much for joining us from Doha. And we'll be right back with more news. We have much more on all the breaking news coming out of Syria, and we'll do that right after a quick break.
CNN Heroes on All-Star Tribute. Meet and celebrate the honorees. Then find out who'll be Hero of the Year. Plus, a special tribute to Michael J. Fox. CNN Heroes on All-Star Tribute. Tonight at 8 on CNN.
I've been warned by celebrities, athletes, and world leaders. But I've always felt
Today. I'm Allison Camerata, along with my colleague Wolf Blitzer. And we begin with the breathtaking news. This weekend out of Syria, the long, brutal regime of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is over. It was a stunning end to a violent regime started by Assad's father more than 50 years ago. A lightning-fast assault by a coalition of rebel groups captured the capital of Damascus. A source tells CNN that Assad and his family have arrived in Moscow and are being given asylum there. Many Syrians spent their entire lives under Assad's violent rule. Today, they poured into the streets to celebrate. Syrians who had lived under the fist of Assad's power and corruption could be seen entering the abandoned presidential office. Syrians walking freely through the presidential palace, even into the kitchen of Assad's family, where specific instructions were still posted for the family's menu preferences. The rebels also emptied out some of the regime's prisons. Notorious holding cells where so-called enemies of Assad were detained and frequently tortured. It was just a little more than a week ago when opposition forces met little resistance as they took the key city of Aleppo. Then they swept south before surrounding Damascus and deposing Assad. In the end, Russian fighter jets, which had been striking rebel forces in recent days, were nowhere to be found, and Assad's troops dispersed and fled into the streets. President Biden reacting to these stunning developments earlier today, pledging U.S. support for the Syrian people.
It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future for their proud country. It's also a moment of risk and uncertainty. As we all turn to the question of what comes next, the United States will work with our partners and the stakeholders in Syria to help them seize an opportunity to manage the risks.
CNN's chief international correspondent Clarissa Ward is inside Syria right now. Just a short time ago, she spoke to us from Damascus, the capital. Here's some of what she said.
Well, Wolf, I have to say the moment is just utterly surreal for those of us who have been covering this story for more than 14 years. It never seemed possible that it would end like this. I want to say that the streets are incredibly calm, incredibly quiet, but you can see just behind me a few cars have been going through the street. There's actually a curfew in place from 4 p.m. to 6 a.m. That is a security measure, of course. There has been some looting in Damascus earlier on, some chaotic scenes. And so as a precaution, as we saw in Aleppo, they have put this curfew into place. I want to show you, though, Wolf, a clip of the moment that we crossed the border, because this is a border that I crossed many times when I used to live in Lebanon, when I used to cover Syria at the very, very beginning of the uprising. And the contrast from what it was and what we experienced tonight is just startling. So take a look at this. So we're just crossing now into Syria. It's astonishing to see. It's absolutely empty. The border points before, there would have been soldiers, there would have been border guards. Now there is absolutely nobody from the Syrian regime. Just a few friendly people waving us through. And honestly, the last time I came down this road was back in 2011. I was leaving Syria. I had been undercover in Damascus, posing as a tourist, went back into Lebanon, and I never imagined this moment would come when we would be driving through this border with no one from the regime to stop us. The scene at that border crossing as we passed through it. Again, it was already dark, already past curfew, very, very quiet, and just nothing like we've seen it before. The only real evidence we saw, Wolf, of any struggle to finally take Damascus, to finally oust Bashar al-Assad, was a tank in the road below a torn poster of President, or I should say former President, Bashar al-Assad. And Wolf, my cameraman, Scott McWhinney, just found this on the ground, literally, as we were listening to that clip. This is the old flag of the Syrian regime, which has 2 green stars. The rebels' flag has 3 green stars, but this one has now been literally, we just found it on the floor. I guess a real moment where you see how much things have changed just in the past 24 hours. In terms of the security situation on the streets, I would just add, we anticipated that we might see quite a lot of checkpoints as we came into the city. We didn't. We did see a group of men. They did not appear to be armed, but they asked us what we were doing, where we were going. And now that we are sort of ensconced in our place where we're staying for the night, we have seen a couple of patrols. I saw 2 men armed, and I went up to them and asked them where they were from. They told me they were from Idlib, which is in the northern part of the country. And we saw a man on the street go up and wanted to pose for a photograph of them, which I think sort of speaks to the moment. There is obviously jubilation, elation, but also this sense of you can't compute. It was so fast, so breathtaking. It's astonishing. And I think people are taking some time to try to process the magnitude. Keep in mind, Wolf, we're talking about 53 years of Assad rule, 53 years of a brutal police state. And I can't tell you how many Syrians have said to me, Wolf, that, you know, we understand that there are concerns about the rebels and the makeup of the rebels and the fact that some of them are Islamists and some of them are even jihadists or have been affiliated with Al-Qaeda or prescribed organizations. But let us have this moment. Let us celebrate the fact that this brutal dictator who has ruthlessly killed hundreds of thousands of people, who has gassed children with lethal nerve agents, who has locked people in prisons and tortured and beaten them to death, that he is finally gone. And that whatever may come and whatever the anxiety, this is a new chapter for Syria, Wolf.
Our courageous correspondent Clarissa Ward in Damascus for us right now. We're also following major new developments on where Bashar al-Assad has fled. An official source in Russia tells CNN Bashar al-Assad and his family have arrived in Moscow and have been granted asylum in Russia. CNN's Fred Pleitgen is in Moscow for us. Fred, what more are you learning about Assad's arrival where you are in Russia?
Yeah, Russian source, Wolf, now confirming that Bashar al-Assad is indeed on the ground here in Moscow, as are members of his family as well. And the Russians are saying that he was granted asylum here in Russia on humanitarian grounds, as they put it. So obviously, even after he was been ousted from power in Syria, the Russians are still allowing him to come here to this country and most probably stay in this country, as well as he has now been given asylum by the Russians. All of this coming, Wolf, at the end of the day where the whereabouts of the former Syrian leader were very much unclear. The rebels, of course, storming into Damascus earlier today, saying that he had fled, but then it was unclear where he was. And it was actually the Russians who were the first to confirm that Bashar al-Assad had indeed left Syria. They say that he had told those under him to make sure that there is a transition of power and that he then left the country. It was the Russian Foreign Ministry that said that. Of course, the Russians have been one of the main backers of the Assad government over the past nearly 10 years, that Russia was first very active in the Syrian civil war, and then, of course, also remained its military presence inside of Syria as well. I can show you where I am right now. I'm actually in what most probably now is the embassy of the former Syrian Arab Republic, and you can see up there, Wolf, that the flag of the Syrian Arab Republic, the one that Clarissa was holding before, that has been taken down now here as well in Moscow at what was one of the most important embassies for the Syrians. And if we point to the door there, you can see that the plaque of the Syrian Arab Republic has also been removed from this building as well. You can see that there's not a single light on inside the building, so it's unclear whether or not anybody is going to be returning here. You can also see over there, if we point to the other side of the building, that the bust of Hafez al-Assad, of course the father of Bashar al-Assad, who ruled Syria before him, is actually still there. However, this, of course, does point to the fact that the Russians have now come to terms with the fact that the Assad family will no longer be ruling Syria. The Russians are saying that they are in touch, Wolf, with all of the armed factions on the ground in Syria. The Russians, of course, very concerned about their military assets in the Syrian Arab Republic. They are very important to the Russians, both the airbase near Latakia and also a port that they use for their warships near the town of Tartus, Wolf.
All right, Fred Plankin in Moscow for us. Fred, thank you very much. Let's get some more now on the breaking news coming out of Syria. Rebel fighters liberating the capital of Damascus and abruptly ending the long and brutal rule of President Bashar al-Assad. CNN's chief international security correspondent, Nick Payton-Walsh, is joining us right now. Nick, we know who this rebel group is designated, that this rebel group is designated a terror organization by the U.S., the UN, and many Western countries. And a senior U.S. official says the U.S. believes a significant portion of this HTS group, as it's called, still has strong ties to ISIS. What more can you tell us about the group's ideology and the potential links, a major cause becoming, and are these potential links a major cause for concern?
Look, we simply don't know at this stage, and I think it's entirely fair to permit HTS, who have come to this position saying they wish to be inclusive, they wish to represent all the different ethnicities and religions inside of Syria, to give them a period of time in which they could potentially try and execute that. But it's also important not to forget where they came from. Now, this rebel opposition movement is not exclusively HTS. There are many other groups that are part of it, some potentially worse as extremists, some potentially more moderate. But HTS have retracted this attention because of the history of their leader, al-Jilani. Now, as his name suggests, he is in fact from the Syrian area near the Golan Heights, and went as a young man to fight the US occupation in Iraq. Not an abnormal thing necessarily for someone motivated to do, given the emotions against the US presence at the beginning of the war in 2003, 2004. And then later on, he moved into the al-Nusra group, which became al-Qaeda's affiliate, fighting the Syrian regime in the civil war. And that, of course, led to great concern about the extremist nature that part of the opposition against Assad was indeed developing. But then, indeed, the Nusra group and Jilani himself suggested that when ISIS spawned from that rebel movement, that was indeed too extreme for them and went their own separate direction. The issue, I think, here is whether or not any of this designation, when any of this history of extremism becomes the central tenet of what their government ideas necessarily are. And we don't really know at this stage whether Jilani has a particular specific plan for the kind of government he wants to run in Syria. He's been clear to try and sound inclusive. He gave CNN a very open interview. His previous interviews have had his face covered back in 2014 when he spoke to Al Jazeera. And indeed, he's used his real name of Ahmed al-Sharaa recently as well to try and, I think, suggest the idea that he's sort of emerging from the shadows as a genuine politician here. But a lot of this is essentially something we're going to have to learn more about over time. The US still has a bounty of $10 million over his head, which is a key thing certainly to bear in mind. If that is alleviated, it might be a suggestion that the US is more comfortable. But ultimately, too, we have to look to his backers here. It does appear that Turkey has a significant stake in the success of HTS moving forwards. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was clear on Friday when he spoke about this, that he tried negotiations with Syria's President Bashar al-Assad. They'd failed, and he wished this opposition movement success, he said, all the way to Damascus. Well, here they are. And so I think many will look to Ankara to see exactly what it is they can do to force moderation on this group. I think many too will be wary and skeptical about Turkey's history with entrusting people who I think they felt potentially were going to serve their cause. I remember being in 2013 in southern Turkey and watching a series of foreign men turning up in the airports there, crossing the border and joining kind of more jihadist causes there. At the time, Turkish officials were trying to play that down as not necessarily something to be worried about. But later we saw ISIS emerge in parts of Syria and Iraq indeed. So while there's no immediate parallels necessarily at this stage because the civil war that caused so much of that extremism in Syria and indeed Iraq neighboring has dissipated, and we're looking at a moment of victory now where a new kind of Syria can indeed potentially be forged. It's important to remember where many of these leaders hail from, and also, just try and see whether they're able to put behind the extraordinary violence of the past decade or so and turn out to be as effective in governance as they have been in the last week in ousting this particularly brutal regime. Wolf, I think however much we look into exactly who Jelani is, who HTS are, it's really important to remember exactly what they appear to be replacing, and that's the Assad regime, which is frankly one of the most brutal, horrific states we've seen over the last decades on Earth, responsible for the indiscriminate bombardment of civilians, the death of children, the use of chemical weapons, just utterly horrific what they've been capable of doing. And so, obviously huge scrutiny about what comes next, as it will define the nature of this particular victory. But I'm sure that sense of relief at change is behind so much jubilation we're seeing.
That's a really important point. Nick Payton-Walsh reporting for us. Nick, thank you very much. We're getting new information right now about a series of U.S. airstrikes inside Syria against ISIS targets as the Assad government was falling. Our breaking news coverage will continue right after this.
Welcome to Times Square.
That's not on my leg! Cheers! So embarrassing.
New Year's Eve Live with Anderson and Andy. Live coverage starts at 8 on CNN, streaming live on Max.
I've been warned by celebrities, athletes, and world leaders. But I've always felt most comfortable up here with the folks that made me who I am. I'm right at home, out here on the land. And I'm in my lane, on the shoulder of the interstate. Because this is where I come from. I've been showing up here for nearly 200 years, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Hats off to the future.
Nothing runs like a deer.
This is the sound of this season's favorite gift. For a limited time, Omaha Steaks is offering the favorite gift package that includes our famous bacon-wrapped filet mignon, our delicious air-chilled chicken breast, burgers, franks, sides, and desserts, all for just $89.99. That's 64% off. Order now to include 4 more burgers free. This exclusive TV offer is our best of the season and won't last. Order today at omahasteaks.com/TV.
I love this. Whoa, how'd you get your teeth so white?
You gotta use the right toothpaste.
Dr. C?
Not all toothpaste whiten the same.
Crest 3D White removes 100% more stains for a noticeably whiter smile.
New personal best.
Crest.
On Medicare? Living with diabetes? Progress is having your coffee like you like it, without an audience. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor can help lower your A1C over time. Covered by Medicare for more people managing diabetes with insulin. This is progress. Ask your doctor about the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor.
With Chime, I can get paid when I want. Why do we accept waiting 2 weeks for payday? I work hard every day, but I don't get paid every day. Because of Chime, I don't have to wait to get paid anymore. With my pay, I can get up to $500 of my pay on my schedule. There's no interest, no credit checks, no mandatory fees. I love being in control of my money, and for the first time, I can control my payday. And you can too. And that's why I Chime. Join me at chime.com and get paid when you say.
48% of Americans don't get enough magnesium, which is vital for bone, nerve, and muscle health. I recommend Cunol's Magnesium Glycinate. It's formulated for high absorption and is gentle on the stomach. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Helping families with mesothelioma is all we do. Our firm has been offering a free book on mesothelioma for over 10 years. Since that time, thousands with mesothelioma have trusted us to represent them against those responsible. We have local offices throughout the U.S. Mesothelioma really is all we do, and there is no risk to you. Let us put a plan in place for you and your family. Call now.
Call us at 800-213-8000 or go to mesobook.com.
This holiday, think inside the box. Think about a gift from Nuts.com. It's much more than a gift box. it's a night in with friends. Choose from our tastefully curated holiday gift options with 20% off and free shipping on your first order.
He's the former commander of U.S. Army forces in Europe. General Hodges, thanks so much for being here. What are these U.S. airstrikes about, and why today?
Well, Allison, I think that probably U.S. Central Command saw opportunity and targets as a result of what's happened to the Assad regime. But I have to say it also reflects a hyper focus by the United States on counterterrorism, on destroying ISIS, which is not a bad thing to destroy ISIS. But I don't know what our strategy is more broadly for the region. So this attack is a reminder of that's mostly what we're doing.
What is the level of the ISIS threat inside Syria today?
Well, of course, this is an organization that has existed for some time. It has morphed based on opportunity and its own challenges. And of course, I think it's in our interest that ISIS is eliminated. But the bigger point is what happens now in the aftermath of the Assad regime? What are America's interests? What are the interests of the West in Syria? And ISIS, frankly, is not an existential threat to our country or our allies. It's something that needs to be addressed, but it should be part of a much larger, broader strategy for the region.
But you make a great point that there's now a power vacuum. And so what do we know about this rebel group, the coalition, and, you know, the leaders that have pushed aside Assad and gotten his regime out of Syria? I ask because the group, as you know, was once linked to al-Qaeda, and the U.S. has designated some parts of it a terrorist organization.
Yeah. Of course, we don't know all the different groups. I guess that's what makes this region such a challenge for our government, for U.S. Central Command and others, because there are so many different groups and interests involved. And I thought Nick, your colleague Nick, did a very good job of explaining some of the challenges of understanding what's going on, which, by the way, also highlights why American intelligence is so important. And it's not just having 2 or 3 agents there, but it's the whole network of sources that are used, working with partners, how important it is that other nations trust our intelligence, and the ability then to do analysis of what's going on there so we know who is who. I think trying to find out the real intentions of Mr. Jelani, for example, that will be at the top of most lists of intelligence requirements.
I mean, of course, this comes at a time of transition in the U.S. also. President-elect Trump said on social media that the United States should not get involved in Syria. Is it possible for the U.S. now to just be hands-off with Syria?
No, not at all. We are involved. I mean, we have allies in the region. We have a NATO ally, Turkey. We have our Israeli partners, and we have Arab nations that are partners as well. So we are involved. We just talked about trying to hit ISIS targets there, and it is in the interest of the United States that Russia and Iran do not have any more influence in Syria. It's in our interest that Syria is no longer a conduit for weapons from Iran to Hezbollah. And it's in our interest that the millions of Syrian refugees that left Syria as a result of the civil war, that they're allowed to come back home, because that will take pressure off of our Turkish ally and also our European allies. So of course we have interest, and of course we should have a stake in how this plays out. Now, I think all of us that are trying to make predictions right now, we're all going to be wrong. It's too early to be able to make accurate predictions about what's coming. But I think we should be very clear about our interests there and clear on what our objectives are.
Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, thank you for all of that.
Thanks,
well,
Allison.
we've seen armed protests and rebellions against the Syrian government over the years. What was different this time around? That's next in the CNN Newsroom.
It was the most exciting time in the world.
This life had extremely joyful moments and some really difficult moments.
You only come across an artist like Luther Vandross once in a lifetime.
Luther Never Too Much, New Year's Day on CNN.
Let's review. We're not going to talk about traffic or weather. If anyone brings up lawn care, I will handle it. Hosting can be extremely difficult for young homeowners turning into their parents.
Oh, are you done with this? I'll just take that.
Okay, he's still drinking.
Oh, look what the cat...
Nope. Let's try again. You wouldn't mind? It gets ugly. You can either take it off or I'll take it off you. Yeah.
Progressive can't protect you from becoming your parents, but we can protect your home and auto when you bundle with us.
You loved it. Take
Doesn't
it.
want it.
Surprise! There's still time to save. Wayfair's Cyber Week sale is back for an encore. It's your last chance to save up to 70% off on furniture and cookware, holiday decor, and more at Wayfair's lowest prices of the year. Plus, score new deals of the day, every day. And get free shipping on everything. Don't miss your last chance to save up to 70% on everything home. Shop Cyber Week now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Cerevital Advanced has been such a game changer for me.
Cerevital Advanced increases your body's own youth hormone, reduces wrinkles, and promotes weight loss.
I see such a difference in my skin. I notice fewer wrinkles. My skin looks healthier. It was easier to get lean. I literally shed a few pounds in the first couple of weeks.
It does give me that feeling of just being radiantly alive.
Cerevital Advanced, the #1 anti-aging therapy in America.
It's hard to say who'll be more excited on the day after Christmas. The guy who got a brand new truck from mom and dad, or the guy who got all the WeatherTech protection for his truck, like laser measured floor liners, the underseat storage system, no drill mud flaps, impact liner with shock absorbing rings, and top it off with the alloy cover. Find these American made gifts or get a gift card instantly at WT.com.
Psoriatic arthritis symptoms can be unpredictable. One day, your joints hurt.
Next sits on your skin.
I got Cosentix. Feels good to move.
Feel less joint pain, swelling and tenderness, back pain, and clearer skin, and help stop further joint damage with Cosentix. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentix. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentix.
I love how light it feels. It's not heavy, it's not cakey. I feel like I'm not wearing any makeup at all. I don't see any other reason to try any other makeup foundation ever.
Hickory Farms is my favorite part of the holidays, and sending delicious food is the perfect way to celebrate the season. There are many holiday gifts to choose from, so I have Hickory Farms delivered to everyone I'm shopping for. It's a gift I know they'll love every time. Visit hickoryfarms.com to get your holiday shopping done.
Here's your coffee.
Oh, best intern ever.
Oh, nice. You use Fiverr. Working on anything big?
Oh, yeah. Growth strategy.
Maybe I can help.
Yes. Can I get some oat milk?
Sometimes great talent is right under your nose.
I tend to deal with things in life with a sense of humor. My therapist on BetterHelp and we share this trait, and so we connect on a deeper level, and I'm more comfortable sharing things with him.
I'm Rafael Roma at the Georgia State Capitol in Atlanta. This is CNN.
Closed captioning is brought to you by MyQ, an all-in-one home access and monitoring system.
MyQ, boost your home's IQ.
We are following all the latest developments on the breaking story out of Syria today after rebel fighters say they liberated the capital of Damascus, abruptly ending the long, brutal rule of President Bashar al-Assad. Last hour, I spoke with Firas Maqsad of the Middle East Institute here in Washington, who said this moment for the Middle East is akin to the collapse of the Berlin Wall for Europe, and that it ushers in a new era, not just for Syria, but for the entire region, a region that is all too familiar with regime change after the 2011 uprising known as the Arab Spring. Joining us now is Arwa Damon, founder and president of INARA, the International Network for Aid, Relief, and Assistance, and a good friend, former CNN colleague. Arwa, you and I covered a lot of Middle East stories together. You know this region well. How are you thinking about the history that's being made today?
You know, Wolf, I've been finding myself really flashing back to what it was that Syrians had to pay to get to this point, the hundreds of thousands who were killed, the tens of thousands who were detained, and what it really means. I mean, if we just stop and think about it for a minute, after decades of rule of the Assad dynasty, but especially after the last 13, 14 years, we're at a moment in time where across Syria, you can pretty much say Syria is free, and you can say that without fear. And that in and of itself, and no one knows how long that's going to last, but that in and of itself is such a seismic moment. I mean, think about the families that are going to be able to be reunited. So many people are flocking to the prisons, trying to find word of those who they loved who disappeared. We're seeing extraordinarily heartfelt moments of people being freed, of families being reunited, the sense of sort of, optimism of, oh, after all this time, are we actually going to be able to go home? That we're hearing from so many of those who are internally displaced, so many of those who are refugees. I mean, there is this, euphoria, but there's also so much apprehension, and everyone's head is spinning, not just with what this moment means, but with everything that they went through to get to this point in time.
Yeah, good point. And to that point, we're seeing really incredible videos, pictures of Syrians being released from infamously brutal prisons. Help us appreciate a little bit more just how significant this is and what horrors may come to light as journalists and civilians investigate what actually happened there.
I mean, let's start talking about the visceral fear that existed of the Assad regime, that permeated every fiber of every single person's being to such a degree that I remember on numerous occasions talking to Syrians who were outside of Syria who were worried about appearing on camera because they still had loved ones inside Syria, and they were afraid that their loved ones would pay the price for their outspokenness. The fear of being put into one of Assad's prisons, disappearing into the dark nexus of torture and despair that existed there. Let's also remember the images of the skeletal bodies that emerged because brave activists were able to, get them out, those infamous Caesar files. And the stories that we already heard up until this point about the various different torture techniques that the Assad regime henchmen used to use. I mean, the level of fear, the way that this family governed the country by crushing its own population is not something to be underestimated. And the euphoria that Syrians feel, yes, it's mixed with apprehension and anxiety and uncertainty about the future, but this is a moment. And to think also, Wolf, that it came after the world basically abandoned Syria. The world was willing to write off all of the dead and the detained and the displaced and start to normalize with the regime. To think that this moment came at that point in time when no one was predicting it. And it is a moment that is in many ways so uniquely and truly Syrian that one can't help but appreciate the strength of those who were able to hold on for this long.
Really is amazing what's going on. What are your biggest concerns right now as it relates to the entire region?
It's obviously the stability of it, or rather the instability of it. I mean, look, talking about Syria right now, no one is really deluded into thinking that anything is going to be easy in this, next phase. There are a plethora of challenges and a plethora of very real and valid fears. But there's also a certain level of sort of pragmatism and maturity that we're seeing in terms of not just, military strategies that brought Syria to this point, but also in the political space as well. Now, that being said, it could very much be lip service. And it really is one of those scenarios of, who really knows what's going to happen? I don't think anyone predicted what just took place, nor do I think that anyone can really predict what is going to happen, because there's so many different factors. And I think, when you kind of extrapolate and look at the region as a whole, Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, and everything that's happening, there is a sense that things cannot stabilize until everything stabilizes. But at the same time, the region is changing, whether it wants to or not. And some of these changes are being forced upon it, and some of these changes are being driven by the people themselves. And I think there's this great sense, especially as someone who has basically been covering this region for more than 20 years now, of, is this the point where the people of the region are actually given the agency to be able to decide their own future without any of these outside meddling forces?
Always good to reconnect with Arwa Damon. Arwa's in Doha, Qatar for us right now. Arwa, thank you very, very much. Excellent analysis. Meanwhile, President Biden laying out the next steps his administration will take after rebels topple the Syrian government. Much more coming up. That's ahead.
CNN Heroes on All-Star Tribute, tonight at 8 on CNN.
Why use 10 buckets of water when you can use one fire extinguisher? And to fight heartburn, why take 10 antacids throughout the day when you can take one Prilosec? For easier heartburn relief, 1 beats 10. Prilosec OTC. 1 pill, 24 hours, 0 heartburn.
This is the story of the one who doesn't just see a broken dock. He sees lost revenue, a late night, and work stalled to a halt. Thankfully, he has the experience to handle whatever comes his way and has Grainger on his side, offering access to technical product specialists and the scale to deliver fast, so he can keep his business in gear and always moving forward. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Take an EKG from anywhere, but with 6 times the data. Can your smartwatch do that? Introducing Cardia Mobile 6L, the FDA-cleared EKG that provides 6 times more heart data than any smartwatch. And it detects 3 of the most common arrhythmias in just 30 seconds, including atrial fibrillation, bradycardia, and tachycardia. Get Cardia Mobile 6L for just $109 this holiday season at Cardia.com or Amazon.
Blue Chew? Yeah, you know Blue Chew? Yeah, so it's like chewable tablet things like... Oh, girl, how do you know Blue Chew? Oh, man. Come on. And it made you like him more, right? Absolutely. Or you could... Where do I get Blue Chew? Well, you can go online and get your first month free, actually, so...
Why has America accepted the wait for payday? Introducing MyPay from Chime. Get up to $500 of your pay before payday. No interest, no credit check, no mandatory fees. Get paid when you say. With MyPay. Get started at Chime.com.
When my mom needed adult diapers, I didn't know where to start. Then I found Carewell. I called their 24/7 customer care team and got advice on which products were right for her. They helped me find the right fit and absorbency for her needs. I was able to get exactly what mom needed at a great price. Plus, it shipped free right to my door. As a new caregiver, I have a lot of questions. I'm so glad Carewell is there to help. Save 30% on your first order and get 24/7 customer care at Carewell.com.
This Christmas, give the gift that gives back all season long with the outdoor cooking fun and flavor that's better on a Blackstone. Join more than 12 million Blackstone users who know you can cook anything, anytime, anywhere with an endless variety of your favorite foods for every breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Go to your nearest retailer or blackstoneproducts.com for the best deals of the season and make everything better on a Blackstone.
What will you do when the power goes out? Power outages can be unpredictable and inconvenient, but with a Generac home standby generator, your life goes on uninterrupted because you'll have power when you need it the most.
The number one thing to prepare for is extended power outages. Don't make it so hard on yourself. Have a Generac home standby generator.
And special financing and low monthly payment options are available. Call or go online now to request your free quote. Power your life with Generac.
I wanna jam it with you. We're jamming. Hope you like jamming too. We're jamming. I wanna jam with you now.
The Black Friday sale is now on. Visit beaches.com or call 1-800-BEACHES.
Sounds like you need to vaporize that cold.
NyQuil Vapor Cool?
It's NyQuil plus a rush of Vicks Vapors.
NyQuil Vapor Cool, the vaporizing nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, best sleep with a cold medicine.
I find it challenging to come up with a gift that's really impactful, something that really makes a difference. Jolie has been a tremendous gift. It's something that is not only looks beautiful, but makes us feel amazing, and is something that we get to use every day.
I can't move again.
You've gotten used to chaos. We can get rid of that.
Don't sell.
Oh my gosh, is this our house?
When leaving just isn't an option, the brothers are here to help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Don't hate your house. All new Wednesday at 9 on HGTV.
More breaking news. We're following the White House focusing in on the next steps in Syria following the fall of the Bashar al-Assad regime. CNN's Kayla Tausche is joining us from the White House right now. Kayla, President Biden raised some of these key objectives when he spoke earlier this afternoon. Tell us about that.
Well, President Biden outlined a rough roadmap of what he sees as the next steps for Syria and the broader stability of the region. And they include, first, supporting Syria's neighboring countries, with Biden planning to speak to those leaders in the coming days. Second, preventing ISIS from exploiting the power vacuum that is left by the Assad regime, which has now been overturned. To that end, the U.S. in just the last few hours has hit 75 ISIS targets at a big gathering using 140 munitions to send a message to ISIS to not try to reconstitute in the wake of this coup. And number three, to promote a United Nations-backed transition process toward an independent Syria, which Biden called a historic opportunity.
It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future for their proud country. It's also a moment of risk and uncertainty. As we all turn to the question of what comes next, the United States will work with our partners and the stakeholders in Syria to help them seize an opportunity to manage the risks.
Now, as for those risks, of course, the resurgence of HTS is one of those risks, with questions about whether that will indeed be the group that will retain power in Syria. A senior administration official says to that end that the U.S. has made contact with all Syrian groups, including many other opposition groups, which President Biden encouraged to speak out. But as to what the day after for Syria looks like, these officials and the president himself have indicated that remains up to the Syrian people. Wolf.
All right, Kayla Tausche at the White House for us. Kayla, thank you very much. And now that the Bashar al-Assad regime has fallen, how will it change U.S. policy for the incoming Trump administration? We have details. That's next.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
Hey, who's Beetlejuice?
Don't ever say that name. Not ever.
Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice.
The juice is loose.
I'm gonna make you so happy. This is from the heart.
Beetlejuice, rated PG-13. Now streaming exclusively on Max.
HomeAglow just cleaned my entire house for $19. Seriously, $19. They showed up right on time and did my dishes, my laundry, they even cleaned my windows. You just pick a date, pick a cleaner, and enjoy a spotless house for $19. I love using HomeAglow, and I think you will too.
I can feel the winds of change.
Surprise! There's still time to save. Wayfair's Cyber Week sale is back for an encore. It's your last chance to save up to 70% off on furniture and cookware, holiday decor, and more at Wayfair's lowest prices of the year. Plus, score new deals of the day, every day. And get free shipping on everything. Don't miss your last chance to save up to 70% on everything home. Shop Cyber Week now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
WeatherTech presents
Deck the halls with gifts so happy. La 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 la. Made right here so nothing's crappy. La 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 la. Laser measure, perfect fitting. La 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 la. Auto home and even pets too. Perfect is for me and perfect is for you.
Happy Holidays start at WT.com.
That grimy film on your teeth.
Dr. G?
It's actually the buildup of plaque bacteria, which can cause cavities.
Most toothpaste quit working in minutes, but Crespo Health's antibacterial fluoride protects all day.
They stop cavities before they start.
Crest.
You're weeks away from reversing the signs of aging with Cerevital Advanced. From wrinkle reduction to weight loss to looking and feeling younger overall. Cerevital Advanced is also a natural way to boost your body's own youth hormone, which sharply declines with age, backed by 25 years of research and proven over and over by experience. Cerevital Advanced, the #1 anti-aging therapy in America. Learn more at trycerevital.com.
Free shipping at Hickory Farms is my favorite part of the holidays, and sending delicious food is the perfect way to celebrate the season. There are many holiday gifts to choose from, so I had Hickory Farms delivered to everyone I'm shopping for. It's a gift I know they'll love. Shop hickoryfarms.com to get free shipping on select gifts.
85% of Gen Z use social feeds for their gifting needs.
Shopping season bells are ringing. Get your business ready for business with social media experts on Fiverr.
With hectic holidays approaching, reach for my Tuscan Dreams full face palette made for mature skin. Bronzer, blush, highlighter, all give you beautiful color. And 6 eyeshadows too. Shop our holiday collection at laurageller.com.
There's so much ease with using BetterHelp.
I knew that I wanted to get help immediately. I was going to be able to see a therapist within that same week.
Now I feel so much more confident in expressing myself, and that's been a great gift.
I'm Pete Mundine at Reagan National Airport. This is CNN.
Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
If you or a loved one have mesothelioma, we'll send you a free book to answer questions you may have. Call now and we'll come to you.
800-821-4000.
Shortly before the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, President-elect Trump posted on social media that the U.S. should not get involved in Syria, saying, quote, "This is not our fight." I'm joined now by Shelby Talcott. She's a politics reporter for Semaphore. Shelby, we know that President-elect Trump wants to avoid involvement in other countries' wars, as he has said. But all of the military analysts and international relations analysts we've had on today say the U.S. is already involved. We have 900 troops in Syria. We're deeply invested in what happens next there. So is President-elect Trump giving any details about what he wants the U.S. to do?
We haven't heard too much yet, but we do know that J.D. Vance, his vice presidential pick, has echoed his sentiment. He said earlier today that this is not our fight. We should stay out of it. Now, as you note, that is easier said than done. And I think a lot is also going to be determined based on what the Biden administration decides to do in the next month. Remember, the Trump administration has not begun yet. And so what the Biden administration does over the next several weeks is going to impact what Donald Trump can and maybe has to do going forward at the start of his administration.
It was interesting because after Assad fled, President-elect Trump also posted that Russia had abandoned Assad and was in a, quote, weakened state because of the Ukraine war. So what is Trump's latest position on Russia and the Ukraine war?
You know, he said all along throughout the campaign trail when I followed him over the past 2 years that he wants to come to some sort of deal with Ukraine and Russia, and that has not changed. That continues to be his stance. And again, it is a situation where perhaps this is easier said than done, but he believes that because of the situation in Syria, it has even more so impacted Russia and their ability to be successful.
Another very interesting political byproduct of all of this is Tulsi Gabbard. So that, of course, is Trump's nominee for Director of National Intelligence. She'll be on Capitol Hill this week. She met with Assad, as we will remember, in Syria in 2017, and she dismissed U.S. intelligence findings at the time that he used chemical weapons on civilians, though there was evidence to that. She said that Assad was, quote, not the enemy of the United States. So what does this moment mean for her confirmation hearing?
I think this is a huge moment for Tulsi Gabbard. Obviously, lawmakers have not forgotten about those comments, and they were already concerned. Now with Syria front and center, there's going to be a lot of questions that I anticipate she's going to face in the next week and during her confirmation process about those comments and about how she would handle and advise Donald Trump on issues like Syria.
Has she said anything this weekend since all of this erupted?
You know, a lot of Donald Trump's picks have been extremely quiet. Most of them, with the exception of Pete Hegseth, have not been on the media circuit. Obviously, Pete is the exception because he is in sort of the political fight for his life. So we don't really know too much about it. We do anticipate she's going to Capitol Hill in the next week. I believe that we will learn more about those meetings as they come, but all of the real political fight is with Pete right now, and that's the concern that Donald Trump's campaign is focused on at the moment.
Yeah, makes sense. Understood. And it's just, I mean, to your point, it's fine. And I think that a lot of people really respond and were attracted to President-elect Trump's idea to not have the U.S. be involved in overseas wars. But as all of the analysts have said today, there is so much at stake. I mean, there's, just today, President Biden's administration had airstrikes against ISIS targets, I think 75 ISIS targets in Syria. So the U.S. is, wrapped up there. And it would be nice to hear from President Trump what the plan is to disentangle.
Yeah, certainly. And again, a lot of this is going to depend on what happens in the next few weeks, right? As you said, we are already involved in Syria. So the issue is not, let's not get involved in Syria. It is going to be for Donald Trump, how do we remove ourselves from involvement in Syria, if that, in fact, is what he plans to do. Now, the other thing is, of course, we don't know how these rebel groups are going to wield power. We don't know if they are going to seek to gain new territory. All of those factors could affect what Donald Trump ultimately ends up having to do once he actually takes office. So it is not as easy as let's just not get involved.
Shelby Talcott, thank you very much. And we'll be right back.
New Year's Eve Live with Anderson and Andy. Live coverage starts at 8 on CNN.
With Dexcom G7, managing your diabetes just got easier. So, what's your glucose number right now? Good thing you don't need a finger stick. How's all that food affect your glucose? Oh, the answer's on your phone. What if you're hitting low at night? Wow, it can alert you. And you can even track your goals. Manage your diabetes with confidence with Dexcom G7, the most accurate CGM. Learn more at Dexcom.com.
When you live with diabetes, progress is having your coffee like you like it, without an audience. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor tracks your glucose in real time, so everyone else doesn't have to. And over time, it can help lower your A1C. Confident choices for more control of your life. This is progress. Learn more and try for free at freestylelibre.us.
This is the sound of the season's favorite gift.
For a limited time, Omaha Steaks is offering the favored gift package that includes our famous bacon-wrapped filet mignon, our delicious air-chilled chicken breast, burgers, franks, sides, and desserts, all for just $89.99. That's 64% off. Order now to include 4 more burgers free. This exclusive TV offer is our best of the season and won't last. Order today at omahasteaks.com/TV.
I love this.
I still love to surf, snowboard, and of course skate, so I take Cunol Magnesium to support my muscle and bone health. Cunol's high absorption magnesium glycinate helps me get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
In just 1 year, I had over $900 in banking fees, and I had enough. I realized just how much money I could save. That's when I found Chime, and I signed up immediately. There's no overdraft fees, no monthly fees, and over 60,000 fee-free ATMs. Just by banking with Chime, I'm saving hundreds of dollars a year, and I'm using that extra money for my daughter's future. For a normal guy like me, I've given myself a small raise. Join me at Chime.com.
This is the carry-on closet, the suitcase with a one-of-a-kind closet system that keeps you organized anywhere. Pack all you need for up to 10 days and travel without ever unpacking. The comfort of home on the go. Unpack in seconds at soulguard.co.
Helping families with mesothelioma is all we do. Our firm has been offering a free book on mesothelioma for over 10 years. Since that time, thousands with mesothelioma have trusted us to represent them against those responsible. We have local offices throughout the U.S. Mesothelioma really is all we do, and there is no risk to you. Let us put a plan in place for you and your family. Call now.
Call us at 800-213-8000 or go to mesobook.com.
Why use 10 buckets of water when you can use one fire extinguisher? And to fight heartburn, why take 10 antacids throughout the day when you can take one Prilosec? For easier heartburn relief, 1 beats 10. Prilosec OTC. 1 pill, 24 hours, 0 heartburn.
I avoided the mirror. I felt alone for a long time.
I remember going home and praying for it to go away, not thinking it was something wrong with me.
I go into a lot of things thinking it's not going to work, and I thought muesli would be the same thing. But it actually worked.
More than 700,000 patients have regained their confidence with Muesli's prescription treatments.
When you're hopeless and then you find other women who are in the same boat as you, you suddenly feel okay. We're gonna get out of it together. That's what Muesli did for me.
Does your wife know you spent over $600 on takeout?
We're busy. We don't have time to cook.
Okay, but do you know you're also paying for a meal kit on top of that?
Wait, really?
Look, just get Rocket Money. It shows you all your expenses in one place, and it even tracks your subscriptions. And any subscription you don't want, which features a lot you don't need, you can cancel right in the app.
So you mean I don't have to call customer service to cancel?
Nope, no hold times or anything. And we'll even try to get you a refund for the money you spent, which I'm sure your wife will appreciate.
Downloading Rocket Money right now.
It's time that we go back to Tennessee. Nashville's a hot market. Oh, okay. This isn't fitting 10 kids.
No.
I want to make this the perfect home for them. Look at this.
Christina in the Country. All new. Tuesday at 9 on HGTV.
Before we go on this very busy news day, I just want to take a moment to share some personal news. This is my last day on air at CNN. I've had such incredible opportunities here these past 10 plus years. I've interviewed presidents and heroes and extraordinary people, the kind of peak career experiences that I had dreamed of since I was a teenager. The journalists at CNN are the very best in the entire news business, and it's been an honor to have been their colleague. It's also an honor to have been in your homes this past decade through some of the biggest stories of our lifetimes. I'm always touched when a viewer comes up and tells me that I helped them get through these challenging times. So I look forward to doing much more of that with you. Please follow me on Instagram at Allison Camerata for updates on where to find me in the very near future. And to my dear friends at CNN, thank you for all of the laughs that we've shared, all you've taught me about the power of journalism, and for making my time here so deeply rewarding. I wish you all a peaceful holiday season, and we'll see you all soon.
And Allison, I think I speak for all of our viewers here in the United States and around the world
when I say we will miss you. You're not only a good friend, but a colleague and an outstanding journalist. And I know whatever your next challenges and adventures will be, they will be exciting and wonderful. And we just hope you will stay in touch with all of us. And we'll follow you, of course, on Instagram as you pursue your next challenge. Thank you for everything you've done for us. It has always been a pleasure for me personally and for all of our colleagues to work together with you. Appreciate it very, very much. And to our viewers.
Likewise.
Okay, of course. Wonderful. Thank you. Alison Camerata, thank you very, very much. And to our viewers, thanks very much for watching. I'm Wolf Blitzer in Washington. I'll see you back here tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern, in the Situation Room. CNN Newsroom continues with Jessica Dean right now.
This is CNN Breaking News.
You're in the CNN Newsroom, and I'm Jessica Dean in New York. The brutal half-century Assad family regime in Syria has ended. Rebels have taken hold of the capital of Damascus, one of several major cities they took control of in enlightening advance. Bashar al-Assad fled the presidential palace. That residence, a symbol of his gruesome dictatorship, has been burned and ransacked. At this moment, Assad and his family are in Moscow after being granted asylum in Russia. That's according to a source. And the entire world now waits to see what happens in Syria. President Biden declaring the U.S. will engage with Syrian groups to establish a transition. U.S. Central Command, meanwhile, saying U.S. planes have struck over 75 ISIS targets in Syria today. That is part of an ongoing mission which has hundreds of U.S. troops deployed in that region. CNN Chief International Security Correspondent Nick Payton-Walsh has more on Assad's fall from power.
Decades of savage, horrific rule over in a matter of days. Thousands of Syrians celebrated in the streets of Damascus after rebel forces advanced on the capital early Sunday morning, declaring it free of President Bashar al-Assad.
We announce to you from the Syrian news channel the victory of the great Syrian revolution after 13 years of patience and sacrifice. We won the bet and toppled the criminal Assad regime.
Facing crumbling resistance from regime forces, rebels launched a stunning, lightning offensive. Russia undermining its long-term ally by announcing he had fled the country and was granted asylum in Moscow. Hours of jubilation followed as civilians and rebels entered the presidential palace, looting furniture with children running about, a sign of how every day the suffering he inflicted had been. Some even touring the presidential kitchen in a land where starvation was once a weapon. "What would you like?" one woman says while filming. "Our people are hungry. Take whatever you want." Traces of Assad were being dismantled across the country. This statue of the man who had children gassed in a Ghouta basement 11 years ago toppled in the eastern city of Tartus. His image torn down from buildings in Damascus and on top of the gates of Homs city centre, symbolically where protesters tore apart his image more than a decade ago in a scene that defined the civil war's early days. Inspired by the seismic shifts of the Arab Spring, Syrians rose up in 2011 demanding democracy, but were met with live rounds and eventually jet planes, chemical weapons and mass executions and torture. Hundreds of thousands were killed, millions displaced. As rebels swept through the capital on Sunday, images surfaced of prisoners being released from the notorious Saydnaya prison, from which so few emerged. Dubbed the human slaughterhouse by Amnesty International. The militant figure leading this rebel offensive is Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, seen here prostrating in prayer upon entering Damascus. Once affiliated with Al-Qaeda, Jalani has been suggesting he has matured from his extremist roots, though there are deep concerns about what kind of new Syria may now emerge. At one of the oldest mosques in the world in Damascus, he was received with applause and jeers as he hailed total victory.
This victory, my brothers, is a victory for the entire Islamic nation. This new triumph, my brothers, marks a new chapter in the history of the region.
Without doubt a new chapter, but with the joy of change comes anxiety at the future, and surely a reckoning of sorts for the decades of horror past that could mar the hope of the days ahead.
All right, Nick Peyton Walsh, thank you very much for that reporting. Also tonight, CNN getting a rare look inside Damascus. Our Clarissa Ward, the first Western journalist to report from Syria since Bashar al-Assad's fall, takes us through the city just hours after he fled. She spoke with Wolf Blitzer shortly after arriving in the Syrian capital. Here's that.
Well, Wolf, I have to say the moment is just utterly surreal for those of us who have been covering this story for more than 14 years. It never seemed possible that it would end like this. I want to say that the streets are incredibly calm, incredibly quiet, but you can see just behind me a few cars have been going through the street. There's actually a curfew in place from 4 p.m. to 6 a.m. That is a security measure, of course. There has been some looting in Damascus earlier on, some chaotic scenes, and so as a precaution, as we saw in Aleppo, they have put this curfew into place. I want to show you, though, Wolf, a clip of the moment that we crossed the border, because this is a border that I crossed many times when I used to live in Lebanon, when I used to cover Syria at the very, very beginning of the uprising. And the contrast from what it was and what we experienced tonight is just startling. So take a look at this. So we're just crossing now into Syria. It's astonishing to see. It's absolutely empty. The border points before, there would have been soldiers, there would have been border guards. Now there is absolutely nobody from the Syrian regime. Just a few friendly people waving us through. And honestly, the last time I came down this road was back in 2011. I was leaving Syria. I had been undercover in Damascus, posing as a tourist, went back into Lebanon, and I never imagined this moment would come when we would be driving through this border with no one from the regime to stop us. The scene at that border crossing as we passed through it. Again, it was already dark, already past curfew, very, very quiet, and just nothing like we've seen it before. The only real evidence we saw, Wolf, of any struggle to finally take Damascus, to finally oust Bashar al-Assad, was a tank in the road below a torn poster of President, or I should say former President, Bashar al-Assad. And Wolf, my cameraman Scott McWhinney just found this on the ground, literally, as we were listening to that clip. This is the old flag of the Syrian regime, which has 2 green stars. The rebels' flag has 3 green stars, but this one has now been, literally, we just found it on the floor. I guess a real moment where you see how much things have changed just in the past 24 hours.
Incredible reporting from our Clarissa Ward there. Thank you so much for that. And our coverage of Syria continues now with Ambassador James Jeffrey. He's a former U.S. envoy for Syrian engagement and also the former U.S. ambassador to Iraq and Turkey. Mr. Ambassador, thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
We spoke to you last night as this was all unfolding. And now here we are, roughly 24 hours, almost exactly 24 hours later, and the Assad regime has officially fallen. I just first want to get your thoughts on what comes next for Syria.
Well, first of all, there's going to have to be a period of internal stabilization that will be very messy. I've been involved in about 6 ceasefires in the last 50 years. They're never clean. They're never orderly. We just saw one in southern Lebanon that's still messy, and this is going to be far messier. It's a far bigger country. That said, all of the parties are talking. Our Kurdish Syrian Democratic Forces partners are in conversation with Yasser al-Sham, the organization Jalani leads. He's in conversation, of course, with the rump government in Damascus under Prime Minister or ex-Prime Minister Jalali, and various other forces are coalescing. They're getting a lot of external support. President Biden just came out to underline how important this success has been for the people and for the region, and urging that everybody work together and avoid going after each other. We have to watch this carefully, but nonetheless, that is the basic worries that we always have, even when a situation turns out very well. This is good for the Syrian people. It is good for the region. It is bad for Russia and Iran, thus good for the rest of the world.
And the U.S. believes there are links between Syria's rebel coalition and ISIS. And I know we heard from Jake Sullivan yesterday. We've heard from the president. One of their main concerns is making sure ISIS does not reestablish a stronger foothold there in Syria. How does this further complicate this new government? And how do you see that piece of it playing out?
It's a complication, but I would rather be dealing, and I was the envoy dealing on the political side with the Islamic State for 2 years. I would rather be dealing with those guys than dealing with the Iranian axis of proxies throughout the region, Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Gaza. That's a far more difficult problem, as we've all seen over the last 14 months. So even if there are some links, we can deal with them. First of all, as you just reported, our Central Command has just bombed the hell out of the Islamic State positions in the Badea Desert. Meanwhile, the Israelis have struck suspected chemical weapons sites that the Assad regime may have left behind. So there's a lot of attention on this. The other thing is Jolani and his movement, HTS, fought the Islamic State. And while he is officially still on the terrorist list, we haven't seen any what we would consider terrorist activities out of that movement for a good deal of time, for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And in fact, we indirectly, we didn't work with him, but we were supporting the people, some 3 million refugees that were under his control in the northwest of the country. And we were very appreciative of the efforts he was doing to stop Assad, Russia, and Iran's advance.
Do you expect to see more U.S. bombings and airstrikes like the ones we saw today?
Oh, absolutely. It's been hard to fully eliminate the Islamic State in Syria. But I think that that was partially because of the inept nature of the Syrian army. I think that with the Syrian Democratic Forces, Kurdish allies who've moved in some cases south of the Euphrates, and with these opposition forces unleashed on the Islamic State, along with our bombing campaign and the usual kind of raids special operations people do, I don't think they're going to do very well.
And you touched on this in the beginning of our conversation, but just in terms of what this means for Iran, what this means for Russia, it's certainly very bad news for both of them.
Yeah, but in a different way. Russia's goals in the Middle East were relatively limited, mainly focused on Syria in preserving a friendly government for the end of having a naval and an air base in northwestern Syria to project, in a very limited way, power in the region. With Iran, it was very different. Iran has had, since 1979, the revolution, a goal of essentially taking over a hegemony of the Middle East, working through proxies, most of them, but not all, Shia Muslims in countries such as Iraq, Syria, of course, Lebanon, Gaza, I mentioned, and Yemen, and putting the rest of the region under pressure. That all has been turned on its head. Hamas has been basically destroyed. Hezbollah heavily defeated. Iran, of course, lost heavily in its missile and air war with Israel in the last few months. And now the centerpiece of this whole thing, the link of what we used to call the Shia crescent between Tehran, across Iraq, Syria, into Beirut, Lebanon, that has been taken away from Iran. And this is huge.
Yeah. All right, Ambassador James Jeffrey, we're going to leave it there, but thank you so much for your thoughts on this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Still ahead, more of our breaking news coverage as President Biden lays out the next steps his administration will take after the fall of Assad's government in Syria. Plus, new developments on where Assad has fled. We're live in Moscow, where the Russian government has granted him asylum. You're in the CNN Newsroom.
CNN Heroes, an all-star tribute. Meet and celebrate the honorees. Then find out who'll be Hero of the Year. Plus, a special tribute to Michael J. Fox. CNN Heroes, an all-star tribute. Tonight at 8 on CNN.
This is not a drill. Subway dropped the price on all of their subs. 20% off any sub, any size.
Subway did what? Any sub?
Yep. For a limited time, you get 20% off when you order now. Hurry and get this deal before it's gone.
Within 2.5 weeks, I noticed immediately a difference in my wellness, in my gut, especially for perimenopausal and menopausal women who are trying to figure out what supplement to take. This is a key part of it for me.
Money is tight, so we must make sacrifices. I give up my bespoke shaving subscription.
And I'll stop ordering everything that's trending on Instagram.
And I will no longer agree to the add-ons at the oil change place just because the mechanic called me ma'am.
It really is a top-of-the-line filter, ma'am.
And of course, we'll downgrade our insurance to get a lower rate.
Well, you know you don't have to make sacrifices now that you're saving money with the Progressive Home and Auto Bundle.
You couldn't have said that like 6 seconds ago?
At BetMGM, everyone gets a welcome offer. So whether you're courtside trying to hit the over or up here trying to hit the under, or hitting that win with your crew. Oh, LC defense. All the way up here with a same-game parlay. Yeah! BetMGM's got your back. Get your welcome offer and play with the sportsbook born in Vegas. Oh, this easy. Really?
Get up to a $1,500 new customer offer and bonus bets when you sign up now. BetMGM. Download and bet today.
Class dismissed.
Your time is valuable.
Class
Don't spend it in courses you've already taken.
Class dismissed.
Huh.
Class dismissed.
This class. Again.
At University of Phoenix, prior eligible college credits can transfer with you, saving you time. Plus, there's a scholarship just for transfer students. Transfer your eligible credits and earn your degree.
What will you do when the power goes out? Power outages can be unpredictable and inconvenient, but with a Generac home standby generator, your life goes on uninterrupted because you'll have power when you need it the most.
The number one thing to prepare for is extended power outages. Don't make it so hard on yourself. Have a Generac home standby generator.
And special financing and low monthly payment options are available. Call or go online now to request your free quote. Power your life with Generac.
Waiting till Friday to get paid is tricky. I'm a music teacher who plays gigs, and I need to get paid before the weekend to rent equipment, or else I have to cancel. With Chime, I get paid 2 days early with no fees. Now I can make every weekend gig. Join me at Chime.com.
I'm a forgotten subscription. Poor guy signed up for my free trial a year ago and forgot to cancel. Now he pays me $18 every month. It's awesome.
Don't let this happen to you. Download Rocket Money today.
The Cuisinart Air Fryer Toaster Oven can air fry, toast, bake, grill, and broil. So you can break up with your oven. It's a work of Cuisinart.
You've never had a pretzel until you've had pretzels.com. You think they'd give just anyone that domain? 50 delicious flavors, perfectly seasoned, shipped fresh to you or a loved one in just days. Pretzels.com. So good, we earned the name.
For over 25 years, Lovesac has been rewriting the rules of comfort. It's okay to change your style. Get messy. Get immersed. With Lovesac, you make the rules.
CeraVital Advanced has been such a game changer for me.
CeraVital Advanced reduces wrinkles and promotes weight loss.
My skin looks healthier.
I literally shed a few pounds in the first couple of weeks.
Learn more at tryceravital.com.
Luther Never Too Much, New Year's Day at 8 on CNN.
President Biden says the fall of the Assad regime is a moment of both risk and opportunity for the people of Syria. Senior White House correspondent Kayla Tausche is joining us now. And Kayla, the U.S. considers the Syrian rebel leader a terrorist group or a terrorist rather, and believes many parts of the coalition remain with solid links to ISIS. What is the administration thinking through right now?
Well, there are two critical concerns that the administration has. One is to make sure that no group, HTS or another group, gets access to the biological and chemical weapons that the Assad regime had under its care. A senior administration official left no question that that is a high priority for the administration, and also said that they have high fidelity, in this person's words, where those weapons are located. But the other priority for the administration right now is to make sure that ISIS does not exploit this power vacuum as a way to seek a resurgence. In the words of this senior administration official, these guys want to reconstitute. To that end, the U.S. just today launched 140 munitions targeting 75 targets at a large ISIS gathering in central Syria, and they believe that that mission was quite successful. It was designed to send a message to ISIS, a threat rather, not to see the overturning of the Assad regime as an opportunity for it to come back. How that plays out still remains to be seen, but one big question for the Biden administration is who really takes power now. In their eyes, it is not a foregone conclusion that it is HTS at the end of the day who takes the reins of this country that's been at war for more than a decade. And President Biden said ultimately it's up to the Syrian people. Here's what he said.
And I want to say it again, sovereign Syria with a new constitution, a new government that serves all Syrians. And this process will be determined by the Syrian people themselves. And the United States will do whatever we can to support them, including through humanitarian relief to help restore Syria after more than a decade of war and generations of brutality by the Assad family.
President Biden said the U.S. supports a United Nations brokered transition process, and the senior administration official says that they are in touch with many opposition groups across the country. Jess.
All right, Kayla Tausche at the White House for tonight. Thank you very much. A source telling CNN Bashar al-Assad and his family are now in Moscow, where they have been granted asylum. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has been a longtime ally of the Assad regime, providing the Syrian government with air power and other military support for nearly a decade. Our Fred Pleiken is in Moscow. Fred, what more do we know about Assad's relocation there to Russia?
Yeah, it's Russian sources, Jessica, now telling CNN that Bashar al-Assad and members of his family, as they put it, have been granted asylum here in Russia. The Russians are saying that all this is on humanitarian grounds. And you were mentioning, obviously, the Russians for a very long time. One of the real main backers and strongest backers of the Bashar al-Assad regime, and now apparently allowing him to come here and stay here, giving him asylum after he's been ousted inside Syria. And it really comes at the end of a day where, for a very long time, the whereabouts of the former Syrian leader were very much unclear. If we recall early this morning, when the rebels first entered or took over all of Damascus and started going into government buildings, the presidential palace, they said it was absolutely unclear where Assad is. And it was the Russians, actually, who first came out and confirmed that Assad had left the country. They said that Assad had told some of his confidants to make sure that power is handed over in Syria, and that he then left the country. That came from the Russian foreign minister, but of course it was unclear where he was. The Russians now tonight confirming that he is indeed in Moscow, that members of his family are in Moscow as well, and that he will be granted asylum by the Russian Federation. Jessica.
And Fred, how does this impact Russia's military presence in Syria?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question here in Russia, and really something that we've heard here asked quite a lot. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is that these Russian military bases are big, and they're extremely important for the Russians because they project power through these bases, not just inside Syria, but really also on their way to West Africa, to Libya and other places as well. And of course, the Mediterranean has become very important, for instance, for Russian naval exercises, which took place just this past week. Right now, it's absolutely unclear what happens to those military bases. One of the things that the Russians have said is that those bases, the soldiers on those bases, the forces there are on high alert. However, the Russians are also saying that they're in touch with all of the armed groups on the ground, they say, and that for now, the safety of their soldiers and those bases have been guaranteed. However, it really seems unclear whether or not the Russians are going to be able to hold on to those assets for an extended period of time, or if those who soon will be in power in Syria are going to ask the Russians, possibly other foreign forces that are on the ground in Syria, to leave as well. Again, for the Russians, that would be a big blow. These military assets have been extremely important. And just from having been on the ground with the Russian forces at these bases, I was at their air base, I was at their naval port as well, and actually on a Russian ship as well. For them, these places were extremely important as far as their military campaign to support Bashar al-Assad at the height of the Syrian civil war were concerned, Jessica.
Fred Pleiken in Moscow for us. Thank you so much for that reporting. We appreciate it. Up next, the U.S. conducting more than 75 new airstrikes inside Syria today, immediately after the Assad regime's collapse. What we know about the targets, also what's being done to keep Assad's weapons arsenal from falling into the wrong hands. We have breaking news coverage for you continuing in just a moment.
New Year's Eve Live with Anderson and Andy. Live coverage starts at 8 on CNN.
When I move, you move. Just like that. When I move, you move. Just like that. When I move, you move. Just like that. Hell yeah. Hey, DJ, bring that back. When I move, you move. Just like that. When I move, you move. Stand up.
Precise designs, subtle curves, curated upgrades, elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
This is the carry-on closet, the suitcase with the one-of-a-kind closet system that keeps you organized anywhere. Pack all you need for up to 10 days and travel without ever unpacking.
Take advantage of everything AARP has to offer right now. Join AARP for $9 per year with a 5-year term, and your second membership is free. Get access to discounts on everyday purchases, eye care and prescriptions, and tools and tips to help manage your money and maximize your health. Plus, AARP fights to protect your Social Security, Medicare, and more. Join and get an insulated trunk organizer free, plus AARP the magazine. Call or go to joinaarp.org now.
My hair was thinning all around my hairline.
My dermatologist recommended Nutrafol. It's 100% drug-free and clinically tested.
My hair is longer, thicker.
Nutrafol is life-changing for me.
Get growing at Nutrafol.com.
All my life, I have enjoyed great chocolate. This is my masterpiece. And this piece, only at Truffles.com. Featuring classic and unique flavors made by me, Wolfgang Buck. Get the perfect holiday gift only at Truffles.com.
As a cardiologist, when I put my patients on a statin to reduce cholesterol, I also tell them it can deplete their CoQ10 levels. I recommend taking Cunol CoQ10. Cunol has 3 times better absorption than regular CoQ10. Cunol, the brand I trust.
When life spells heartburn, how do you spell relief? ROLAIDS. Rolaids dual active formula begins to neutralize acid on contact. Rolaids spells relief.
You know what Blue Chew is? You could boost your numbers if you took it.
Never heard of Blue Chew.
Blue Chew? Yeah, you know Blue Chew?
Yeah, so it's like chewable tablet things like...
Oh, girl, how do you know Blue Chew?
Her man.
Come on. And it made you like him more, right?
Absolutely. Or you could...
Where do I get Blue Chew?
Oh, you want to know where you can get it now? Well, you can go online and get your first month free, actually, so...
Okay, I mean, can't say no to free month.
Would you date him if he took a Blue Chew?
I would have to go with a yes.
Look, you're in it, my boy.
Sounds like a date, man. My boy. Thank you, Blue Chew.
Hickory Farms is my favorite part of the holidays, and sending delicious food is the perfect way to celebrate the season. There are many holiday gifts to choose from, so I had Hickory Farms delivered to everyone I'm shopping for. It's a gift I know they'll love every time. Visit hickoryfarms.com to get your holiday shopping done.
You guys spend $315 a month on subscriptions.
I thought we only had like 2 or 3.
You guys need to download Rocket Money. It helps you find subscriptions you're not using and cancels them, so you're not wasting hundreds of dollars on things you don't even need. Download Rocket Money today.
My melasma made me feel really ugly. I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. I just hated taking photos.
How am I ever going to get rid of it?
Stop suffering from melasma. More than 600,000 people have regained their confidence with Muesli's prescription treatments.
In the first 2 weeks, I was amazed.
I looked at myself in the mirror and I just thought, I'm back. I've been telling everybody about it. It's been life-changing.
Find the real you again. Go to muesli.com/TV.
Now is not the time to lose faith.
Sisterhood above all.
Dune Prophecy, streaming exclusively on Max.
Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
According to the U.S. military, these were precision strikes that targeted ISIS operatives, camps, and leaders. They used B-52s, F-15s, A-10s. This was part of a broad effort by the U.S. government to try to deny ISIS the opportunity to reconstitute in the midst of this moment of profound uncertainty for Syria in the wake of the fall of Bashar al-Assad and in a moment when the U.S. is concerned about a potential power vacuum giving ISIS that opportunity. Take a listen to how President Biden described the stakes of these airstrikes today.
We're clear-eyed about the fact that ISIS will try to take advantage of any vacuum to reestablish its capabilities and to create a safe haven. We will not let that happen. In fact, just today, U.S. forces conducted dozens of precision strikes, airstrikes, within Syria, targeting ISIS camps and ISIS operatives.
The other big concern for the U.S. right now is a series of camps that are run by the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces in Syria that hold thousands of ISIS fighters that have been taken off of the battlefield. Biden said today that the U.S. is also working to help secure those facilities because, of course, the nightmare scenario for the U.S. is that some of those fighters may escape or be broken out again in this very volatile and uncertain security environment inside Syria right now. Those prison camps have been a really intractable policy problem for the United States for a long time, not only because they hold ISIS fighters from Syria and Iraq, but also because they hold a number of fighters who hail from Western nations who are refusing to bring them home. What to do about those camps in the long term and how to keep them secure, always been a problem, a particularly acute one today, again, now in the wake of the fall of Assad, with no real sense of certainty of what is coming next.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And Katie Bo, just more specifically, what is the Pentagon saying about those U.S. forces that remain inside Syria?
So there's about 900 American troops still inside Syria, where the number that has been fairly consistent since the end of the Trump administration. They are there to ensure that ISIS is not able to reconstitute. That's their primary mission. Right now, no indications from the Biden administration or from the Pentagon that these troops are going anywhere, which of course means the big question is now force protection. How do you keep American service members safe? The other big question, of course, is going to be what Donald Trump does when he comes into office on January 20th. He tried to completely withdraw from Syria during his first administration. Whether he moves to do so when he takes office in January, big open question, Jessica.
We will watch that. Katie Lillis at the Pentagon, thank you very much for that. We want to turn now to an expert in all of this, CNN military analyst and retired U.S. Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. Good to have you here with us. I want to start with the news we just heard. The U.S. today conducting dozens of those airstrikes inside Syria. Give us a sense of where the targets are and the weapons that were being used.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. And there's several basic things that we have to look at here, but what we're talking about is targets in this eastern part of Syria and the southeastern part of Syria. So a better map to show that probably is this one right here. And what you're looking at is all the ISIS concentrations right in this area. And so the target area that we're really dealing with is this part right in this part of the Syrian desert. This is where those 75 plus targets were struck using munitions that were carried in by the likes of the A-10, which is basically a tank killer, and in many ways an aircraft built around a Gatling gun, which is a type of machine gun that goes as far back as the Civil War. B-52, the famous bomber workhorse right here. This is something that a vehicle that can carry a whole bunch of bombs, about 31,000 kilograms, 70,000 pounds of bombs of various types, including the Joint Direct Attack munition, and of course the F-15, which is a fighter jet that has a 20 millimeter gun, as well as carrying up to 26 bombs, depending on how it's configured. So that's the kind of weapon systems that were used in this, and these can be highly, highly effective against targets like ISIS.
And Cedric, there's obvious concern about any sort of power vacuum. What do we know about these different rebel groups and their links to terror groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda?
Yeah, so this is, quite a big deal on this particular day. So let's take a look first at the map right here. We've got the Kurdish forces up here in the north and the northeast. We've got Syrian rebels that now control all of this. You've got Turkish-backed forces that are here. And then, of course, the Islamic State that we talked about in this particular scenario where we had the U.S. attack on them. But the main rebel group, the umbrella group, is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS for short. It's a former al-Qaeda affiliate, and many of its elements are actually based on al-Qaeda or ISIS. The leader is a man named Abu Muhammad al-Julani. He's 42 years old, comes originally from Syria. His parents came from Syria. He was born in Saudi Arabia, but he's got a $10 million bounty on his head because of terrorist activity that he conducted in Iraq. He was actually imprisoned by U.S. forces in Iraq, and of course, HTS is designated a terror group not only by the U.S., the UN, Turkey, other countries have designated this group as a terror group, but it really depends on what they do next, whether or not these designations continue.
And we heard from the leader of that main rebel group in Syria, HTS, as you mentioned, for the first time this morning since all this happened. I want to listen to it.
This victory, my brothers, is a victory for the entire Islamic nation. This new triumph, my brothers, marks a new chapter in the history of the region, a history fraught with dangers. Leaving Syria as a playground for Iranian ambitions, spreading sectarianism, stirring corruption, it became the world's leading source of Captagon. But today, Syria is being purified by the grace of God Almighty and through the efforts of the Iraq Mujahideen.
And we heard him describe Syria there during the Assad regime as a, quote, playground for Iranian ambition. Walk us through what he might have meant by that.
So this is really quite an interesting way of describing things, Jessica, but Iran had a lot of presence in all of these areas. They had main headquarters for their efforts in Damascus. They had bases throughout the country in many of these areas. They were funneling weapons right here into Lebanon. And of course, those weapons were used by Hezbollah to attack Israel, which is right down over here. Basically, Syria could be looked at as a staging area for Iran to conduct operations against targets of various types, including American targets in Iraq, American targets potentially in Turkey, targets in Jordan, and of course Israel and Lebanon. So with the elimination of Syria as a jumping off point for the Iranians, that makes a huge difference, and it really constrains Iran's power. So what al-Julani was talking about here was he doesn't want Syria to be used as a base for Iranian activity because he sees that as detrimental to Syria as well as to the interests of any future Syrian government that he might lead.
And another thing that we keep hearing about now that the Assad regime has officially fallen is this concern around Assad's weapons arsenal and potentially chemical weapons falling into the wrong hands. And we have some video of the aftermath of one of those alleged chemical attacks in 2016 showing the horrific scene of the victims, including children crying. You see people there covering their mouths with towels. Truly awful. What can you tell us about that? What do we know about where this potential arsenal could be stored?
So there are about 6 storage sites throughout throughout Syria that would come into question. There's several around the Homs area. There's some over here in the western side. There are some also near Aleppo, at least they were before the rebels took this area over. So 6 sites that are basically capable of not only holding weapons like VX, sarin, mustard gas. Those were the kinds of chemical weapons that you saw being used against Syrian civilians throughout these areas, but particularly in places like Homs and Hama, where the resistance to the Assad regime was so strong at the start of the Syrian civil war. So all of these areas potentially still hold chemical weapons that could be weaponized, that could be used for an attack on other nations, other Syrians, and that's the kind of thing that really needs to be prevented, and there has to be some kind of an international look at that as we get into the next phase of Syria.
All right, Colonel Cedric Leighton walking us through so much of this. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
You bet, Jessica.
Still ahead, how Israel is responding to the fall of the Assad regime, including ordering troops into Syrian territory. The breaking news continues next.
This holiday season, find the perfect gift at CNN_. From the latest fashion to expert-approved tech to the best beauty finds. Discover it all at underscore.com.
Psoriatic arthritis symptoms can be unpredictable.
One day, your joints hurt.
Next sits on your skin.
I got Cosentix. Feels good to move.
Feel less joint pain, swelling and tenderness, back pain, and clearer skin, and help stop further joint damage with Cosentix. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentix. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur.
Just bust a move.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentix.
This is what my house looks like. And I haven't cleaned in 3 months. That's because I have someone come and do it for me twice a month through HomeAglow. Let's talk about how much that actually cost me. Using HomeAglow, the first cost was $39. The cleaner I chose, Jonathan, did an amazing job, so I stuck with it. Now I pay $49 a month for unlimited cleaning starting at $18 an hour. That's a $30 an hour discount, which means my membership cost pays for itself in under 2 hours of cleaning. Are you still with me? If this is the sort of service you can use, those promos are still available.
Cerevital Advanced has been such a game changer for me.
Cerevital Advanced increases your body's own youth hormone, reduces wrinkles, and promotes weight loss.
I see such a difference in my skin. I notice fewer wrinkles. My skin looks healthier. It was easier to get lean. I literally shed a few pounds in the first couple of weeks.
It does give me that feeling of just being radiantly alive.
Cerevital Advanced, the #1 anti-aging therapy in America.
This country has never been so divided. Are you a licorice lover or hater? We at licorice.com have 50+ gourmet flavors that make awesome holiday gifts for licorice lovers in your life or yourself. Licorice lovers unite at licorice.com.
Oh, we got a WeatherTech gift card.
WeatherTech is the perfect gift for everyone.
May I?
Laser measured floor liners protect carpet in the front and second row. Cargo liner protects the rear. The side window deflector offers more protection.
My turn.
The sink mat contains spills and cabinets.
Something for you too, buddy.
Pets eat safely with a non-toxic pet feeding system. Find these American-made gifts or get a gift card instantly at WT.com.
This holiday season,
Kevin?
Catherine! All aboard the Freedom Unlimited!
Kevin?
Kevin,
Kevin!
and Kevin, Macaulay, take a very special trip to the mall, where anything
Come and get your little kid.
is.
Cash backable!
Really? Yeah.
Anything is cash backable!
Feel sorry.
Tis the season to cash back.
With Chase Freedom Unlimited, how do you cash back? Chase, make more of what's yours.
For over 25 years, Lovesac has been rewriting the rules of comfort. It's okay to change your style. Get messy. Get immersed. With Lovesac, you make the rules.
Home is where the heart is. It's also the place where it can be broken.
Some bad news. It's Jamie's ship. It was lost at sea. I can protect you, but you must marry me.
What happens now?
When you're a small business owner, your to-do list can be a lot.
Super helpful. Israel tonight moving troops north after the fall of the Assad regime. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu directing the military to take control of the buffer zone separating the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights from the rest of Syria. The move is a sign of the potential danger Israel feels about the unknown rulers in Damascus. CNN's Jeremy Diamond reports now from Tel Aviv.
Well, Israeli troops on Sunday began moving into that demilitarized buffer zone that has separated Israeli and Syrian forces for just over 50 years. This will position those Israeli troops between these newly victorious rebel forces and the communities inside the Israeli-held Golan Heights. Now, this buffer zone is Syrian territory, but the Israeli prime minister said that he ordered troops into that zone after the Syrian troops on the other end of that buffer zone abandoned their positions. The Israeli prime minister, speaking from the Golan Heights, also said that he views the collapse of the Assad regime as a, quote, great opportunity, but he also warned that it is one that is also fraught with significant dangers.
This is a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus, offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria. This agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel. This is a temporary defensive position until a suitable arrangement is found.
And in addition to taking positions inside that buffer zone, Israeli troops are also working to reinforce that border area as well. You can see in these images provided by the Israeli military, these vehicles moving the earth in that area to build up a barrier between Israeli-held and Syrian-held territory. Now, we also know that the Israeli military has warned the residents of that buffer zone, Syrian residents, to remain in their homes as Israeli troops operate in the area. The Israeli prime minister in that video message also sought to take some credit for what has happened inside of Syria, saying that the fall of the Assad regime here by these rebels is a, quote, direct result of Israel's actions against Iran and its proxy in the region, Hezbollah. Both Hezbollah and Iran have, of course, propped up the Assad regime throughout the course of this 13-year civil war. And Israel, we know, has significantly weakened Hezbollah's capabilities, both in Lebanon but also inside of Syria. As for the Iranian regime, perhaps distracted by the other events in the region, distracted by Israel itself. And of course, we know that the fall of the Assad regime will amount to a significant blow for Iran as well. And so that's where the question leads in terms of the future of Syria and the future of its relations with Israel. Netanyahu said that he is extending a, quote, hand of peace to all Syrians across the border and that he would like to establish, quote, neighborly and peaceful relations. The real question, though, is going to be what kind of government actually emerges inside of Syria, and will it be one that will preserve what has effectively been a 50-year détente between Israel and Syria, or will it take another tack? And critically for Israeli officials will be the question of what happens to the weapons that have flowed from Iran via Syria into Hezbollah's hands inside of Lebanon. There had been some hope inside the Israeli government that perhaps the Assad regime would cut off that flow of weapons, secure its border with Lebanon. That, of course, is off the table now. And so the question is, will these rebel forces now secure the border with Lebanon and prevent Iranian weapons from getting to Hezbollah via Syria? Jeremy Diamond, CNN, Tel Aviv.
Thank you, Jeremy. Still ahead, no murder weapon and a backpack full of Monopoly money. A lot of questions remain in the murder of an insurance CEO. This as we're getting new images of the suspect as the manhunt continues. Here in the CNN newsroom.
It was the most exciting time in the world.
His life had extremely joyful moments and some really difficult moments.
You only come across an artist like Luther Vandross once in a lifetime.
Luther Never Too Much, New Year's Day on CNN.
When you're the leader in disaster cleanup and restoration, how do you make like it never even happened happen? Let it rain, Randy! Woo! Yes! There's a pro for that.
Serve Pro, like it never even happened.
I use Beetlejuice.
Don't ever say that name. Not ever.
Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice.
The juice is loose.
I'm gonna make you so happy.
This is from the heart.
Beetlejuice, rated PG-13. Now streaming exclusively on Max.
Imagine checking your own heart with medical precision from anywhere. Introducing KardioMobile 6L, the FDA-cleared EKG that provides 6 times more heart data than any smartwatch. And it detects 3 of the most common arrhythmias in just 30 seconds, including atrial fibrillation, bradycardia, and tachycardia. Check your heart with the most advanced personal EKG outside the hospital. Get one for just $109 this holiday season. Don't wait. This offer won't last.
How do you pronounce this word?
Caramels.
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 Caramels. However you pronounce them, there's caramels.com, the world's best kettle-cooked small batch caramels. Caramels.com, the perfect gift for this holiday season.
Hi, Grandma. I played baseball today.
Oh, that's great.
What position did you play?
First base.
That's what Grandpa used to play.
When our hearing wouldn't allow us to use a regular phone, it made us feel isolated.
It became difficult to communicate with our friends and family.
Clear Captions was an easy solution for us.
Clear Captions provides captions on a phone like captioning on your TV, so you can see what the caller is saying live as they say it.
Making it easy to understand and respond immediately.
There is no insurance or Medicare required. Clear Captions service is provided at no cost to you through a federally funded program. We deliver, install, and train you on how to use your phone, all at no cost to you.
Give your loved ones the independence and connection they deserve.
Call now to see if you qualify to get a Clear Captions phone at no cost to you.
Call 1-800-592-1334. That's 1-800-592-1334.
Sometimes omega-3 fish oil supplements can be difficult to absorb. I recommend Cunol Advanced Omega-3 with phospholipid-bound omegas for up to 10 times better bioavailability. Cunol Advanced Omega-3, the power of 10x.
Free shipping at Hickory Farms is my favorite part of the holidays, and sending delicious food is the perfect way to celebrate the season. There are many holiday gifts to choose from, so I have Hickory Farms delivered to everyone I'm shopping for. It's a gift I know they'll love. Shop hickoryfarms.com to get free shipping on select gifts.
Do you have a box of videotapes, film reels, or photos that are degrading? Legacy Box professionally converts them to DVDs, thumb drive, or the cloud. Legacy Box is simple and safe, with over 1 million satisfied customers.